Chapter 926 The Immortal Master has descended. He yelled, "Deist friends, who is willing to come with me to break this sh*t array? I'll go with you." Wondrous Spell High Holiness said proudly. "Deist friend Guyan, how can you leave me out?" Three immortals floated out of layers of thick clouds. In addition to the grey-robed middle-aged man and Wondrous Spell High Holiness, there was a lean old man with white hair. Obviously, he intended to show off his cultivation strength when his robe billowed out. An extremely aggressive immortal spiritual energy shot out with howling noises and swept all over the land. All the people around him, including Wondrous Spell High Holiness, looked serious. "Deist friend Kangja, I've not seen you for years, and your cultivation strength has grown so much." The white-haired old man stroked his beard and laughed, "Just a little, just a little." The elders around him all congratulated him. "Congratulations to you for advancing to a level above us." "Congratulations. It seems like we have the heavens' help in breaking this array." Wondrous Spell High Holiness said with a sneer, "Deist friends, let's enter the evil array and see what tricks it has." "I agree." While laughing, the three deists used various spells and entered the array in the form of three rainbows. "I'll show these mortals what true immortal power looks like." The white-haired Kangja High Holiness said, "I've brought many rare treasures to deal with that demon monkey." The grey-robed middle-aged man who was known as Guyan High Holiness said, "However, the demon monkey somehow has got the news about our power and doesn't dare to show its face. Today, we'll first defeat the so-called 10 Heavenly Masters." They walked forward in the array with hands clasped behind their backs. Then, they came to the array gate with a sign on it, and words on the sign read "Desolate Array." "You're right," Kangja High Holiness said in a cold voice, "the people who built this array dare to block our way with it. Those people deserve to die. I'll enter this array first and see what power it has." With a wave of his big sleeve, mist and clouds that were floating before him suddenly gathered to one spot and formed a vague white jade bridge which extended into the array, carrying him on it. "Good Deo technique!" Wondrous Spell High Holiness exclaimed in appreciation. "Condensed by connate pure essence, the jade bridge can repel and block all evils. This way, we won't be touched by any filthy stuff in the array. I'll see what the desolate array can do about it." The three deists stepped onto the jade bridge and entered the array. Inside the array was a dark space full of gloomy white flags. Lamps dotted the place like starry light or floating ghosts in the dark night. The land was covered by divinatory runes, and light pierced the surging black clouds. A deist sat on the 8 trigram platform cross-legged, waving a white flag. 10 straw dummies stood in 10 directions. Under the wavering white candle light, the straw dummies looked very creepy. The deist waved the white flag, and gloomy winds rose in the array, sweeping black sand from the ground onto the jade bridge. Instantly, black stinky smoke rose from the jade bridge. Like the howling of fierce ghosts, the gloomy winds brushed the three immortals' faces and made them unable to use any of their superpowers. Then, the three stumbled as their visions blackened. They almost fell from the bridge. As the creepy and chilly wind entered their bodies through the pores, the immortal spiritual energy inside them was rendered useless, and their superpowers couldn't be used. They couldn't understand why this gloomy presence was so weird and creepy. The presence didn't enter their physical bodies or their meridians, but their souls got fuzzy and were about to come out of their bodies. At this moment, they shivered and looked horrified. There were countless Deo techniques and superpowers in the world, but they had never seen such a weird and fierce array, such a ferocious killing method, and such aggressive attacks. At this moment, it seemed like all the people who had entered this array lost their life energy as the presence of nature swarmed toward them. No. Their expressions changed again. The power of this creepy array went beyond their imaginations. If they stayed one more moment in it, even their immortal souls would be drawn out. Almost at the same time, the three deists unleashed their best spiritual treasures and circulated all their immortal spiritual energy, flying out of the array in great horror. Swoosh! 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 The immortals outside the array were talking about how the three of them were going to break the array when the three shot out of the array like lightning bolts. Pale-faced and panting, they were scared out of their wits. Astonished, the other elders and high holinesses asked, "Deist friends, what happened?" When they calmed down, they held their breaths and concentrated on checking their bodies with pale faces. After checking, they said, "I thought that they had some abilities, but it turns out that they were just bluffs." Right. The grey-robed middle-aged guy in high holiness said, "The array is indeed creepy but couldn't hurt us. Anyway, it has some power, and you guys can." At this moment, the chilly white light of the three lamps inside the desolate array swayed, and then one of them extinguished. Before he could finish his words, Guy in high holiness stumbled, and his face turned as white as a dummy made of paper. "Deist brother Guyan, what's wrong?" "I'm fine." Guy in high holiness shook his head and said, "Maybe I overconsumed my spiritual energy when I got out of the array." 3 days later, the three deists almost dozed off before the array as they talked about ways to break it. About 10 days later, most of the light in the desolate array had dimmed. One day, Wondrous Spell High Holiness was talking with others about ways to break the array when his vision turned black. Colorless all over his body, he fell to the ground silently like a cold corpse. No breath or sound came from him anymore. Such a creepy death sent chills down the spines of all the members of the 8 major immortal families on the battleground. What's happened? The other immortals saw these three die without any warning in person. Only a short time had passed since they came down to the lower region, but they had lost all the heaven spirit generals and earth spirit generals. Now, even the 3 elders had died in such a creepy way. Their souls were drawn out. One elder checked the 3 bodies and said with a dark expression, "What?" Almost everyone, including the members of the 8 major immortal families and over 20 elders, all retreated several steps as if they had seen a deadly viper when they heard these words. When they looked down on the array again, the look in their eyes had totally changed as if they were looking at a group of fierce ghosts set on taking their lives. The 36 Heaven Spirit Generals and 4 Direction Spirit Generals had just entered the array to check the situation, but they couldn't even get out of it. They had all died in the array. The powerful Wondrous Spell High Holiness, Gaian High Holiness, and Fang Qi High Holiness had suddenly died in a creepy way after they got out of the array less than a month ago. Horror and endless panic appeared in their eyes. Such things would be unbelievable even to their own ears, but they had to believe the truth before their eyes. Regardless of how great their cultivation strength was, they couldn't find a way to deal with this array. After staying here for more than 1 month, their casualties grew higher and higher. The heaven and earth opened as if the initial chaos had just been cleared. Immortal mist floated down with wondrous immortal music which resonated with the heaven and earth. 7-colored light rose, and rare phenomenon appeared. In the depths of heaven, a group of immortals stood in one line behind a figure. Wearing a feather headpiece, the figure sat in a gold carriage decorated with dragon and phoenix engravings of gold and jade. This figure looked as glorious and noble as the heaven and earth. A gaze fell from the 9th heaven. Immortal Master. Is he an immortal master? The immortal master has descended. All the immortals of the 8 immortal families exclaimed. Their horror and alarm instantly turned into elation and thrill. Some of them even said in a fierce tone, "Now that the immortal master is here, the array will be broken instantly." From the sky, a voice said mildly, as the immortal master said, "Today's immortal tribulations that you are experiencing had been foretold as early as 10,000 years ago. It is only a weak soul-separating array. Your troubles will be over after you enter the array and take back the souls. Today, I'll give you the Saint Spiritual Gold Stamp, the ultimate treasure from the Saint Emperor Palace. Once you cast this gold stamp, the array will be shattered. Do it now." Chapter 927 The 10 ultimate arrays aren't that powerful. In this short time, they now truly understood the great horror of this major array. No one dared to even venture into the array anymore. After all, no one wanted to die like Wondrous Spell High Holiness and his companions who didn't even know how or why they died. They had come with great confidence, but now their confidence had received a heavy blow. The high morale had come to the lowest point among the 8 major immortal families. The elders looked down at the 10 heavenly masters from the Golden Turtle Island. The latter's techniques almost suffocated them. However, all this came to an astonishing reverse as they saw the dazzling figure sitting in the gold carriage in the sky. Flanked by many immortals, he looked like an immortal king ruling his kingdom in the prehistoric era. No one dared to directly look at him. It's the immortal master. Saint Spiritual Yule Gold Stamp. He's Dragon Pool Immortal Master of the Saint Emperor Palace. As the gold stamp flew down from the sky, the immortals bowed together and said, "We welcome the descent of the Saint Stamp." After Dragon Pool Immortal Master understood the great Dao, he collected the original pure essence of the heaven and earth and refined it with a nature-born rare stone before the heaven and earth changed. The stamp took shape after being refined in water and fire for 14,900 years. One elder exclaimed in a low voice, "This item is one of the Saint Emperor Palace's spiritual treasures, which can suppress a world. I never imagined that I'd have the honor to see it." Saint Emperor Palace of the Gui family. Almost everyone watched in elation as the spiritual treasure floated down. This is an ultimate treasure that only the immortal masters have the right to use. Standing among other elders, an elder of Gui family was short of breath as his hands trembled in excitement. He was Profound Spell High Holiness, Gui Xian. There were 4 elders with the title of High Holiness in the Gui family: profound, vast, vital, and wondrous. Obviously, Gui Xian's position was higher than that of Wondrous Spell High Holiness. Even though they were both High Holiness elders of Gui family, the latter must call him senior brother. Elder Gui Xian, congratulations! When the old man took the gold stamp with shaky hands, the people around him congratulated him. With this treasure in hand, no evil can get near you. Standing beside him, a white-clothed stout elder said, "I heard from Wondrous Spell High Holiness that the desolate array in the 10 ultimate arrays has the fiercest evil essence in whole world gathered in one place, and it couldn't be broken by ordinary immortal treasures. But the Saint Spiritual Yule Gold Stamp is the source of pure essence in the heaven and earth, and it usually guards the Saint Emperor Palace." The old man laughed and said, "The evil array built by the unorthodox demons now meets its nemesis. Cloud Crane High Holiness is right. Everyone, you can go with me to break the array." Profound Spell High Holiness looked proud and heroic with the gold stamp in his hands, and he said in a loud voice, "With this item with us, are you still worried that we can't break this evil array? We'll go." The voices resonated in the sky. Above the 9th heaven, immortals yelled like booming thunder. Profound Spell High Holiness lifted the gold stamp and turned into a golden light, entering the array before others. Immediately, the white-robed stout old man, who was Cloud Crane High Holiness, and the other elders dropped into the major array like shooting stars. It's time to show these mortals the great power of the spiritual treasure that guards the palace. The elders and famous masters hadn't seen the interior of the 10 ultimate arrays until now. Once they were inside the desolate array, they saw the gloomy winds that could suck out souls. As the gloomy winds brushed them, they felt like their souls would leave their bodies. In the center of the array, the Daoist waved the white soul flag, and an ominous feeling instantly rose in them. They said in alarm, "Profound Spell High Holiness, hurry up and launch the gold stamp." Profound Spell High Holiness put the gold stamp before him respectfully and kowtowed while saying, "Please make a move, Saint Spirit Senior." The moment that he said those words, the gold stamp floated into the sky. Like the sun, it shone with golden light around it, illuminating this dark chaotic world. Only golden light could be seen. Engulfed by the golden light, the gloomy winds in the array were suppressed. They turned still and stopped moving. The white flag stopped waving at the same time. Profound Spell High Holiness looked at the Daoist in the array and said with a sneer, "This time, I'll see how you can draw my soul." With a yell, he reached for the straw dummies on the array platform. "Hurry and take back the High Holiness's souls." Instantly, figures flew up like swift winds. You dare to take souls from my array? Heavenly Master Yao, who set up this array, snorted and took out a dipper of black sand from under his chair. Then, he tossed it out. The black sand looked neither real nor virtual. It was as vague as a soul and not tangible. It was the extreme yin item in this ferocious array, and even Chai Jingzi hadn't dared to touch it. Once it was tossed out, Chai Jingzi got so scared that he scrambled to flee, leaving the Tai Chi scroll in the array. It looked like ordinary black sand to the naked eye. But when profound spell High Holiness looked closely with the aid of the golden light from the gold stamp, he was so scared that he took several steps back. Accompanied by endless roars and howls from fierce souls, each black sand grain emitted ferocious essence, looking even more lethal than the fierce ghosts and gods from the depths of the underworld. No! Run! Profound spell High Holiness's expression changed drastically, but it was too late to warn the others. The black sand covered the figures in the front of the group. Profound spell High Holiness circulated his spiritual energy and concentrated with his eyes, and he saw that although these people's physical bodies were intact for now, their souls were being quickly eroded. Their souls released a stinky smell as if they were submerged in a pool of sulfuric acid. Evil being! How dare you! At this moment, the saint's spiritual gold stamp suddenly released dazzling golden light. Then, it moved swiftly toward Heavenly Master Yao and engulfed him. I'm the gold stamp saint spirit from the Saint Emperor Palace. Ignorant mortal, how dare you kill in front of me? The power of the golden light instantly multiplied several times. The golden light filled each corner of this dark world almost in less than a second. This is the origin of pureness and peacefulness and ancestor of all essence. I'll see how you can resist it. Profound spell High Holiness yelled, and the horrifying golden light from the gold stamp almost forced the array to stop operating. All the gloomy winds evaporated. Juniors, what are you waiting for? Break the array now. A voice came from the gold stamp, I've subdued this person. Hurry and kill him. The stout cloud crane High Holiness moved immediately, and his face was red with fury. Evil deist, die! Around him, yells sounded as countless spiritual treasures and powerful spells crashed toward Heavenly Master Yao like a shower. Boom! Boom! The desolate array instantly vanished. We broke it. Profound spell High Holiness said in contempt, the 10 ultimate arrays are not so powerful, after all. Looking into the heavenly ultimate array, they heard booming thunder and saw lightning bolts in there. This array. Profound spell High Holiness kowtowed toward the gold stamp with great respect. Juniors, don't expect that I can help much. The voice from the gold stamp said, this array is created from connate pure essence which is almost of the same origin as me. It's not easy to suppress it. What? Everyone looked at the array in horror. At this moment, outside the 10 ultimate arrays, immortal music floated out as colorful phoenixes and light beams danced at the horizon. A figure flew from the southeastern sky on a 5-colored lion. The figure floated over as if he was coming from a mysterious realm outside of the heaven. He looked to be about 18 years old, but at a closer look, his facial features seemed to be engulfed by a layer of thin gauze. But from his deportment, people could feel a coolness that could regarded 10,000 years as nothing. Looking up, they could see a vague purple essence beam rising from the top of his head. It almost reached the top of the sky with a length of tens of thousands of meters. Dragon Pool deist friend, I've not seen you for years. How are you? I've foreseen that the ultimate holy item of fortune won't be obtained with ease. The immortal master waved his hand casually, and 3 colorful light beams floated up. The colorful light beams each contained a yellow silk scroll with pictures of auspicious clouds and beasts, a white jade lamp with bead-like blinking light dots, and a transparent treasure bead that seemed to emit light of the sun and moon. Another immortal master. The immortals and elders from the 8 immortal families all had excitement and elation in their eyes. Another immortal master. This battle alerted 2 immortal masters. With 2 immortal masters with us, there is no array in the world that we can't break. After breaking the desolate array, they saw another immortal master descend. How could they not be thrilled? These immortal masters were existences that they couldn't usually see and were only next to the sages in the major immortal families. These three treasures are Mystic Sky Treasure Scroll, Qian Vital Li Fire Lamp and Vital Suppression Bead. The immortal master said with a faint smile, they are the ultimate treasures from my Avidya Saint Palace and can surely break three arrays. TL note, Avidya is a Sanskrit word whose literal meaning is ignorance, misconceptions, misunderstandings, incorrect knowledge. They can break three arrays. The profound spell High Holiness had just got out of the array and was frustrated by the lack of good ways to break the heavenly ultimate array. Now, he heard these words. We can break three more arrays. At this moment, another figure came from the north. Riding on a lotus flower platform made of blood jade, this figure was dressed in a bright red long robe with red hair fluttering in the wind. Blood-colored heavenly light shot up into the sky, and the phenomenon in the heaven and earth dyed the whole northern sky red. His voice came before him, Dragon Pool Deist friend, I'll help you. How many arrays do you think my treasures can break? Shortly, immortal light flashed above the layers of clouds on ninth heaven as the extremely powerful and horrifying presence descended to the mortal world. The presences of each ultimate treasure were stronger than the last. Each of them seemed to possess the primeval connate presence. The three immortal masters stood together in the sky and looked down on the major array which emitted strong murderous spirits with contempt. This array is interesting. Dressed in a red robe, the immortal master with red hair said. Then, he let out a contemptuous sneer. Unfortunately, they met me. With a wave of his hand, two rare treasures floated down from the sky. One was the gold locking ring, and the other was a blood-colored gourd. He said smugly, look. Do you think my two treasures can break two arrays? Ha 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 ha. Seeing these two treasures, the Dragon Pool Immortal Master said after a long laugh, now that innumerable tribulation deist friend took out the Qiankun gold locking loop and blood jade treasure gourd, how can any array in the world remain intact? Pleased, the Dragon Pool Immortal Master summoned the profound spell High Holiness and the others before saying, I'll teach you how to break the heavenly ultimate array. Take these two ultimate treasures with you. If he hits you with thunderbolts, open the blood jade treasure gourd, which was refined in the 9 killing tribulations with ancient saint demons' bones, blood, essence, and flesh. Immortals and gods will be turned into dust by one touch of it. If that being dares to flee, the immortal master dressed in the red robe and had red hair said, you just activate the Qiankun gold locking loop. He dared to kill our disciples, and I'll make sure he won't get away with it. The array builder has insignificant strength, he's not worthy of our attention. Yes. As you wish. The profound spell High Holiness and all the people around him were elated. Instantly, 28 elders and several High Holinesses from the 8 major families entered the array with their treasures. With so many ultimate treasures gathering at one place in this world, the heaven and earth shook. Winds and clouds changed colors, purple essence shot up into the sky, and golden light overshadowed the blazing sun. The immortal soldiers and generals yelled in surprise, and their cheers sounded like thunder and tsunamis. This is indeed the power of ultimate treasures. The power of ultimate treasures. With these ultimate treasures from the immortal masters, who in the world would dare to block the way of our 8 immortal families? In the past, no one had dared to challenge the 8 primeval immortal families, which was why they had never seen their immortal masters show their hands or witnessed the great power of the spiritual treasures on this level. However, at this moment, they saw the horrifying power that these spiritual treasures could gather, which made them wonder if anyone in the world could resist their families. So powerful! I didn't know that we had such great powers. Connate Cliff Commander Guiyat, the vanguard who had descended to the lower region but got his physical body destroyed by Qi Tiandi, now recovered his physical body and was standing among the immortals. Seeing this scene, he was so exhilarated that he almost raised his head and howled. Heavenly Supervisor Green Sky Immortal also gazed at the lower region in excitement and said, "That day, that mortal dared to insult me. In a while, I'll go into the shop and capture you first. I'll see what you'll say then." Heavenly Ultimate Array, break. At this moment, the spiritual treasures in the hands of Profound Spell High Holiness and others were more powerful than the Saint's spiritual gold stamp. They all came from primeval times and were ultimate treasures that had been refined by fire and water for tens of thousands of years and had passed tribulations. After entering the Grand Array, they broke the array with ease as if they had finally broken through an A-cup ointment which had been blocked for more than 1 month. In less than 1 day, they broke 5 arrays successively. With 5 of the 10 arrays broken, the shop which had been engulfed by the major array began to show. "You dared to kill our elders and holinesses. Regardless of who's behind you, we'll kill you." With a wicked expression, Profound Spell High Holiness yelled in fury. "Half of the arrays are broken." Green Sky Immortal yelled, "Follow me and kill our way into the shop, capture that ignorant and arrogant mortal thief." Kill. Green Sky Immortal was the first charging into the shop. Clank. With 1 foot in the shop, she felt as if she had crashed into a wall. After stumbling back several steps, she looked up and saw a familiar face looking at her coldly. "It is you. Fang Qi." Green Sky Immortal was about to charge forward again when she felt that all the people around her paused. Green Sky Immortal's heart lurched with an ominous feeling. She looked into the shop and saw Fang Qi walking out fiercely with about 600 people behind him. Right behind him were 3 white-clothed fairies with frosty expressions. One of the fairies waved her hand, and a scissors-like golden light shot out. Then, the immortal soldiers before the shop were cut down like harvested wheat stalks. The street before the shop was covered in blood. Green Sky Immortal looked back and felt chills running down her spine. She shivered and opened her mouth wide as if something strangled her. She wasn't able to utter 1 word. Who are you?" Chapter 929 Heaven-Reaching Abilities. Suddenly, they heard the uproar below them. "Hey! What's happening below?" After this powerful major array is half broken, the remaining part will be broken sooner or later. What other power can these junior mortals have after such a great array of theirs is broken? Heavenly Supervisor Green Sky Immortal had thought so as well. After the countless spiritual treasures from the 8 major immortal families broke the horrifying 10 ultimate arrays, the ignorant juniors who had barely reached the borderline between immortals and mortals should be horrified and waiting for death in the shop. Anyone would be scared witless when their trump card was broken. However, what she saw was the opposite. The 600 people behind Fang Qi had bright light in their eyes while fierce presence filled the sky. As for the 3 women who had came out of nowhere, their cultivation strengths were absolutely on the immortal level. "You guys once compiled a list of namest of hermits living in major mountains at the innumerable immortal sea. Have you ever seen these 3 women? Do you know who they are?" At this moment, sitting in the gold carriage, Dragon Pool Immortal Master summoned the Profound Spell High Holiness and the other elders and asked, "That golden light was fast, but I could see that it was a pair of gold scissors with great power. They shouldn't be people unknown to the world." The elders shook their heads repeatedly and said, "We've never heard of any immortal living remotely having a pair of gold scissors as a protective spiritual treasure." "But," the Profound Spell High Holiness said with a sneer, "regardless of where they come from, I think if they try to fight us with spiritual treasures," he took out the gold stamp and said, "then, they will meet an iron wall." "You have a point." Dragon Pool Immortal Master nodded. "It seems like these mortals don't know the power of true spiritual treasures or a saint items." Beside him, Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master dressed in a red robe said with a chuckle. With one wave of his hand, he took off the blood jade treasure gourd from his belt and said, "This treasure is the fruit from a plant that blooms once every 30,000 years and bears fruits once every 30,000 years. Condensed by the blood of the demonic gods who had died in primeval times, it has countless miraculous uses. It hasn't been used to break those arrays. Take it and show its power to the mortals." Dragon Pool Immortal Master laughed and said, "Vast spell, come and thank innumerable tribulation Immortal Master." The vast spell High Holiness, another elder of the Gui family standing next to profound spell High Holiness, took the blood jade treasure gourd and said in pleasant surprise, "Thank you, innumerable tribulation Immortal Master." At this moment, the white-robed Avidya Immortal Master, who looked to be about 18 years old, took out the ancient yellow scroll and said, "You can take my mystic sky treasure scroll with you too." Ha 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 ha. Dragon Pool Immortal Master laughed, "Vital spell can take it. Come and thank Avidya Immortal Master." Another deist named Vital Spell High Holiness standing next to Profound Spell High Holiness hurried over and thanked him. Except for Wondrous Spell who couldn't be with them, the other 3 of the 4 High Holiness elders were thrilled. Since these mortals are still overestimating themselves, we'll go and give them a good lesson. Then, they lowered their clouds and landed before the shop with the spiritual treasures. At this moment, the first group of immortals from the 8 major families charging at the shop had fallen to the ground. Seeing this sight, Profound Spell High Holiness was furious. For countless years, no one had dared to do such outrageous thing to them. No one dared to kill immortal soldiers right under their noses. "How dare you kill our immortal soldiers?" Engulfed in the golden light from the gold stamp in his hand, he looked like a famous ancient god who controlled everything between the heaven and earth. "Who are you? Give me your names if you dare!" Cloud Sky Fairy shouted, "Having obtained Deo since heaven was separated from earth, we show true forms on the 3 Immortals Island. Dumping 6 essences and 3 bodies, I'm one step away from flying to Jade Capital riding on Green Phoenix and becoming a sage. We are Cloud Sky Fairy, Green Sky Fairy, and Jade Sky Fairy from the 3 Immortals Island. You sound so boastful." Profound Spell High Holiness was even more furious after hearing her words. "You juniors dare to claim that you have obtained Deo since heaven was separated from earth. Today, I'll teach you a lesson." He dropped to his knees respectfully with the gold stamp in his hands. With great respect, Disciple Profound Spell asks Saint Spirit Senior to make a move. Extremely horrified, Heavenly Supervisor Green Sky Immortal of the Innumerable Immortal Sea yelled and retreated to stand behind Profound Spell High Holiness. She thought, "This woman's Deo name is the same as mine, but how come her cultivation strength is so horrifyingly high?" But, now that Saint Emperor Palace's gold stamp is here, she can't escape regardless of how powerful she is. This thought calmed her down. At this moment, the saint's spiritual gold stamp released dazzling golden light, and the whole stamp suppressed the surrounding space with an invisible force like a huge mountain. The gold stamp can suppress eternity. This is the primeval ultimate treasure protecting our Gui family's Saint Emperor Palace. Profound Spell High Holiness yelled, "Even if you have heaven-reaching power, you can't escape from it." The moment he said those words, he saw a gold dipper rising into the sky effortlessly despite the force that was enough to suppress the world. Chaos essence meant that it came from the most ancient time when heaven was separated from earth. Containing 3 elements of heaven, earth, and mortal, this small gold dipper held all the mysteries of the world. It was an ultimate treasure that sect master Tongtian passed down in Green Turing Palace, and its power was only next to the connate spiritual treasures of the sect masters, such as the primeval Lord of Heaven and sect master Tongtian. Once the Chaos Essence Gold Dipper was used, fine light beams as high as 30,000 meters rose from the ground, rendering 72 variations and all the superpowers of spiritual treasures useless. Like a bottomless black hole, the vortex of golden clouds pulled the saint's spiritual gold stamp from the sky. Seeming to know that it was no match, the gold stamp immediately turned into a golden light to flee. Instantly, with metal colliding noises, the gold stamp fell into the gold dipper. What? The 3 Holinesses' eyes almost popped out of their eye sockets at this sight. That's the gold stamp from the Saint Emperor Palace. It had been drawn in by this small gold dipper from nowhere. It's an ultimate treasure. Even though you have heaven-reaching abilities, you can't, you're ignorant. My master is sect master Tongtian. Before he could finish, Green Sky Fairy, the youngest of 3 sky fairies said, "You keep calling my master's name but don't know if we have heaven-reaching abilities." TL note, Tongtian means heaven-reaching in Chinese. You. With the ultimate treasure taken, he knew that the punishment from Dragon Pool Immortal Master would be too much to bear even for all the elders, let alone him. After spewing out a mouthful of blood, Profound Spell High Holiness pointed at the 3 fairies and almost passed out in fury. It can even suppress one world. How could it be subdued and taken by a mere gold dipper? Don't waste time on her. Vast Spell High Holiness took the blood jade gourd from his belt and said in a cold voice, "The Immortal Masters gave us more than one treasure, and each of them is more powerful than the last. I don't believe that she can take them all." They exchanged a look. Attack together. While waving spiritual seals in the air with their hands, they launched the blood jade gourd and the yellow silk scroll into the sky. Instantly, the world was plunged into darkness as blood-colored light engulfed the thick clouds in 9th heaven. These 2 treasures were super spiritual treasures made by the fortune of heaven and earth of this world. Once they were used, the whole mortal world was engulfed in their power and didn't look the same anymore. However, the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper seemed to contain a universe of its own, and its force was like a bottomless black hole. The 2 spiritual treasures struggled for a little while before falling into the gold dipper and turning silent. At this moment, Vast Spell High Holiness and Vital Spell High Holiness froze in a daze, and their limbs turned cold. They couldn't even take the punishment for losing one treasure. But now, they lost all 3 treasures? What demonic spell did you use? They pointed at the 3 sky fairies and yelled. The 2 almost went crazy. Each of the spiritual treasures from the Immortal Masters were unimaginably powerful. In the past when these treasures were used, almost nothing could face their power head-on since they could shatter anything with ease. Almost everyone in the immortal families knew the great reputations of these ultimate treasures. This treasure gourd was condensed by the demonic god's blood when the primeval demons fell in ancient times, and it has countless miraculous uses. Also, the Mystic Sky Treasure Scroll is an even better ultimate treasure. How could they be taken by a so-called gold dipper that we have never heard of before? At this moment, Green Sky Immortal, the heavenly supervisor of the innumerable immortal sea, couldn't help yelling, where did you get these treasures? It feels like these mortals had just picked them up randomly on the streets. Otherwise, how come we have never heard of them before? Cloud Sky Fairy snickered and said coldly, "Listen up. This dipper was born when the world was created, and it contains 3 elements of heaven, earth, and mortal. Handed to us in Green Turing Palace, it brings disaster to immortals, gods, mortals, and ghosts." Jade Sky Fairy also laughed. "This is an ultimate treasure of the heaven and earth when the world was created, and it can easily contain the universe. What abilities do you have that can resist this treasure?" Instantly, bedlam broke out among the 8 major immortal families. Outrageous! So outrageous! At this moment, the 2 elders, Vast Spell and Vital Spell, were too frightened to worry about the punishment that awaited them. With Profound Spell High Holiness, they scrambled to flee by riding on clouds, leaving behind Heavenly Supervisor Green Sky Immortal and the immortal generals who trembled uncontrollably, standing where they were. Mr. Fang walked up and said to her, "What did I tell you?" You, looking at Fang Qi and then at the 3 sky fairies beside him, she was so scared that she couldn't speak. Which immortal had seen such a situation? "I've warned you, but you didn't listen. So, you can go to the God's investiture platform," Mr. Fang said mildly, then he opened his hand and showed an ancient-looking stone stamp. "The 3 immortals behind you are indeed powerful." Feeling slighted that even Fang Qi dared to attack her, Heavenly Supervisor Green Sky Immortal put on her brave face despite the fear inside. She shouted, "Even you dare to try and kill me!" Instantly, Mr. Fang launched the stone stamp, and they heard a scream in the next moment. Ah! She fell to the ground immediately. Her head looked as if it had been smashed viciously with a brick, and brain matter sprayed into the air. With an astonished expression, her soul directly flew toward the god's investiture platform. After giving their spiritual treasures to the elders, Dragon Pool Immortal Master, Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master, and Avidya Immortal Master sat down on the clouds and talked about Deo. Naturally, the battle wasn't their concern. After all, they had given out 3 ultimate treasures, and it should be a piece of cake to subdue some insignificant immortals from nowhere. To their surprise, in less than 30 minutes, Vast Spell and Vital Spell fled back in panic, looking disheveled. Subconsciously, the 3 immortal masters looked down and saw that the 3 fairies and the young man named Fang Qi, who was the source of all the trouble, were all intact. What's going on? Dragon Pool Immortal Master was instantly furious. What's wrong with you guys? Why didn't you capture them with the gold stamp that I gave you? The gold stamp, the 2 elders said haltingly. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master interrupted them. Why are you so frightened? Those 3 spiritual treasures are too powerful. Even our gold stamp was taken by their treasure called the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper, they said in panic. But you still have the Mystic Sky Treasure Scroll. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master said coldly, and you have the Blood Jade Treasure Gourd that I gave you. It's, before he could finish, the other 2 stammered, they were, taken as well. What did you say? Morons. You're all morons. You even allowed such ultimate treasures to be taken. You're useless. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master lashed out at them instantly. Did you just watch as they took the spiritual treasures from you? Even if their enemies' spiritual treasures were more powerful, there should have been a battle of some kind. But the treasures had been lost in less than half an hour. However, Dragon Pool Immortal Master looked chilly as he said coldly, the Saint Spiritual Gold Stamp has obtained Deo for many years and acquired its own spirit long ago. Even if you had misused it, it could have attacked by itself. How was it taken? This, the 2 elders shook their heads and said, we have no idea. A golden light flashed from the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper, and the gold stamp fell in it without letting out a sound. What? It took the Saint Spiritual Gold Stamp so easily. The 3 immortal masters exchanged a look. Perhaps, it's another ultimate treasure. It doesn't matter if it is or not. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master who was dressed in a red robe had chilly light in his eyes. If we have this treasure, who would dare to mess with us? Not even demonic gods from the plane of ninefold darkness or the god's palace. Even if they could get the ultimate holy item of fortune, it wouldn't be theirs. But this thing was different. They looked at the 3 sky fairies, and greed appeared in their eyes. They hadn't been so tempted by one treasure for a long time. Such a rare treasure has fallen into the hands of these unknown fairies. What strength do they have that deserve such a treasure? The 3 of them exchanged a look as chilly smiles appeared on their faces. Treasures belong to the powerful beings. It seems like, it's time for us to obtain another fine spiritual treasure. But, Profound Spell High Holiness asked again, do you have any immortal spells to teach us, 3 immortal masters? The 3 immortal masters exchanged a look and then glanced at Profound Spell High Holiness before laughing. Then, Avidya Immortal Master said, but some problems in this world don't need strength to solve them. He smiled and said, we don't need to confront them head-on. Do you mean? Profound Spell High Holiness's eyes lit up as a chilly smile appeared on his face. Everyone has weaknesses. If we can find their weaknesses, then isn't it a piece of cake to defeat them? If not necessary, they wouldn't let these elders take risks since the families had spent lots of energy to raise them, and they were human resources that the families couldn't afford to lose. The ignorant beings who know nothing but using the power of spiritual treasures look powerful, but without a solid foundation, they are just rootless trees. He smiled in contempt. When the wind blows, they will fall. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master looked as if he was no stranger to this idea. After all, over many years of history, the 8 major immortal families had collected countless treasures, and not all of them were obtained by their own merits. Then, hearing his words, profound spell High Holiness was delighted and said, with that ultimate treasure, this being has possessed the power of a true immortal, and even we can't defeat him. But he must open the shop to teach cultivation methods to people and has formed a close relationship with these mortals. The other day, they even used the so-called resurrection spells when the legion under the evil god from the ninefold darkness invaded. I think that they must have used a lot of their vital essence and can't use such skills again for a long while. In other words, even though that being has some power due to that treasure, he still has a mortal mindset which indulges in all kinds of feelings and desires such as kinship and friendship, which could become his weak points. Then, it's easy, innumerable tribulation Immortal Master said. Avidya Immortal Master said calmly as well, I heard that this figure wanted to battle the godly army and demonic army at the same time with his own power. Despite his abilities, he is a bit too arrogant. Fighting on 3 battlegrounds, he must be under tremendous pressure and will surely show weaknesses. We only need to bypass the primary battleground and catch him off guard, Avidya Immortal Master added. Hearing his words, profound spell High Holiness looked grim and said, wondrous spell High Holiness had people investigate him. This figure has some secret tricks up his sleeves, and the shop must have something to do with that ultimate treasure. I heard that someone tried to launch sneak attacks in the shop and was instantly suppressed by lightning bolts the moment he walked through the door. I'm afraid that this being knows his weaknesses, so he is well protected. The shops are protected, but what about outside the shops? Avidya Immortal Master said, he has friends, and his friends have relatives who have their own friends, so on and so forth, involving almost all the people in the world. The mortals are so stupid with their connections, Avidya Immortal Master said with a smile. I heard that a little girl from the demon clan is very close to him, and the girl's relatives all live in the demon nation, far from the humans. Am I right? Profound spell High Holiness replied in surprise, right. Then, he said in a low voice, there are more. The Nalan family, Liu Yundaist Palace, Heavenly Academy, and the other races living in the elf forest on the west continent are all close to him. One who aims big must disregard the trivial things and know when to forego things. But unfortunately, this being's way of doing things is ridiculously naive. I'm afraid that he is still living in his idealized world. He can protect the people in his shops, but can he protect these weak mortals related to them? Dragonpool Immortal Master said with a snicker, he's doomed to fail and work for others. So, this treasure is a gift to us from the heavens. If we don't take it, isn't it disrespecting the great treasure? Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master said with a laugh. Indeed. Dragonpool Immortal Master clapped his hands in appreciation and said to Profound Spell High Holiness and others, we'll stay here to stall the 3 fairies. For now, we can't loan you other treasures, but, the Immortal Masters exchanged a look and said gravely, your mission is very important, so, Dragonpool Immortal Master took a token from his belt and said, you guys take my token and return to Saint Emperor Palace. I'll loan you an ultimate great treasure, which was born in the time before the heavens formed, for 7 days. Take this treasure to the lower region and quickly capture all his friends and their relatives. Perhaps it's not enough. Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master said, Avidyadeist friend, and I will also give you our tokens. Vast spell, vital spell, you two go and take the 3 spirit treasures I left in Innumerable Tribulation Palace, just in case that he has some secret trump cards. Be quick. Yes, they immediately answered. By that time, I'll see what he'll do. When the mission is accomplished, you will all be well rewarded. They were immensely delighted at the promise. Thank you, Immortal Masters. At this moment in the battlegrounds in the mortal world, swords were drawn, and murderous spirit filled every corner. In contrast, the Saint Emperor Mountain was full of delightful atmosphere. Yao Ji was holding a square-shaped strange communication jade. It was the back garden of the Gui family. Some young men sat at a stone table in a circle, each holding an identical strange communication jade in hand. Brother Yao, look at my auspicious beast. It has techniques such as advanced counter-shock, suppression of Mount Tai, and, before he could finish, they heard noises outside. The disciple with surname Gui stood up immediately and looked outward. At this moment, a middle-aged man who looked quite like the young man walked in. "What are you guys doing here? Come with me and welcome the return of High Holiness Elders." "Elders?" The young man of Gui family asked in bafflement. "Dad, didn't the elders go to the lower region to kill the demons? How come they have time to come back?" Chapter 932 Deist friend, please wait. What else can it mean? Who doesn't have relatives and friends? It's said that profound spell High Holiness will go to the territory of the demon clan in the mortal world. Why do they need treasures if they're going to the mortal world? The young man was even more puzzled, wondering why the lofty elders would come back to get treasures before descending to the lower region again. No one knows what other dangers the mortal world will present. With even wondrous spell High Holiness killed, this issue is important. "Don't tell anyone about it," the middle-aged man said in a low voice. "It's an extraordinary issue that seems to concern an ultimate treasure in the mortal world." "What did you say?" The young man waved his hands in boredom. "I have no interest in these things." Then, he returned his attention to the games on his device. The middle-aged man asked curiously, "What's in your hands?" "This is a small gadget popular lately in Thousand Lantern Immortal Market." The young man with the surname of Gui said with great interest, "It's quite interesting and seems to understand our language." He said to the communication jade, "Power off." The game was turned off shortly as the communication jade dimmed. "Look, this is called Artificial Artifact Intelligence, which can execute some simple commands." Meanwhile, in the Wu Vi Deist Alliance in Dajin at the distant continent of Immortal Relic, in a room full of circulating light of spiritual artifacts, Nalan Mingxiu gazed at the messages before her in concentration. "How is it going? Have you found anything useful?" Sitting around her were artifact masters of Wu Vi Deist Alliance. "Ms. Nalan." At this moment, Li Haoran walked in and said, "You secretly connected to all the audio artifacts in the mobile devices. Isn't it a bit sneaky? Besides, you didn't tell us about this important issue." Li Haoran said in displeasure, "Ms. Nalan, I hope that you don't bring the sneaky schemes of the big families into our research room." As messages flashed before her, Nalan Mingxiu said coldly, "Now, we're in an unusual time. Besides, you've always known what kind of person I was since long ago." She shook her head indifferently and replied, "I can't change my habits." "You?" Li Haoran was angered by her attitude. Nalan Mingxiu answered Li Haoran absent-mindedly since her eyes were caught by one of the messages. Her expression changed as she said, "Come and look at this." At this moment, each word of the conversation in the courtyard of Gui family came to their ears. It's said that those demons are too powerful. Even the High Holiness Elders don't want to battle them head-on. So, they plan to attack from the side. It was the middle-aged man's voice. What else can it mean? Who doesn't have relatives and friends? It's said that profound spell High Holiness will go to the territory of the demon clan in the mortal world. At this moment, Li Haoran stopped reasoning with Nalan Mingxiu as his expression suddenly changed. Demon clan? Xiaoyu. Not only Xiaoyu, Nalan Mingxiu put her arm on the desk and tapped her exquisite chin with her slim and long fingers while saying in speculation, "It seems like they got set back at the shop owner's hands and are planning to do something dirty." Li Haoran looked grim. "What should we do then? Even though we can manage to resist these immortals, even that senior can't protect everyone. After all, our strength is limited. That senior is probably not as powerful as we think." Nalan Mingxiu rubbed her temples and looked as if she was having a headache. Otherwise, he wouldn't only show his hand at the last moment each time. "These rats!" Li Haoran gritted his teeth and said, "Not able to fight us with strength, they are resorting to these dirty methods. They defile the name of immortals." Then, they all fell silent. "They use dirty and despicable methods. So what? Nalan Mingxiu's tone was still mild. History is always written by the victors. I'm sure that if the shop owner is defeated, he will be described as the number one evil demon in the whole world in less than 100 years. As for the destruction caused by this war, it will all be blamed on this biggest evil demon. She continued, although I don't know why these lofty immortals keep going after this tiny mortal world, I'm sure that they are doing it to obtain huge secret benefits. Besides, they have felt that these ants have grown powerful enough to threaten them. Nalan Mingxiu said, they've felt the threat, and they certainly want to kill it in the cradle. Li Haoran shrugged. I'm only an artifact master and don't care so much. Let's inform the shop owner of these messages immediately. At this moment, Mr. Fang was still in the new shop at the East Continent. Stationed about 15 kilometers away from the shop under the leadership of the Immortal Masters, these immortals sent out some elders to taunt Mr. Fang every day. Mr. Fang felt harassed by them. He didn't go out and beat them, afraid that it was their trick to draw him away. But if he did go out, these old farts ran so fast that they were gone before the three sky fairies could appear. Mr. Fang began to wonder if he should ask three sky fairies to ambush these immortals. After all, the people in investiture of the gods always fought fairly and didn't use any dirty tricks. At this moment, he received a message from Nalan Mingxiu. Be careful, they are just doing it to pull your attention while their real targets are the Demon Clan, Elf Forest, Heavenly Academy, Liu Yundaist Palace, etc. Mr. Fang replied immediately, they are playing dirty. I'm afraid so. Soon, he received another message from her. What's your plan? With half city fighting the plane of ninefold darkness, the west continent fighting the godly realm, and the east continent fighting the immortal realm, you're fighting on three fronts. They know that you can't split forces to other places and have almost reached the limit. Nalan Mingxiu added. Their intention is to further split your force. There was a while of silence. Fang Qi looked at the advanced carrier rock in his hand. The condition for using the carrier rock was that he must reach 10% synchronization rate with the characters in the cultivation room. The three sky fairies were his limit now. At this moment, the sect masters were beyond his reach. Of the 5 advanced carrier rocks, he had used 4 to summon Yangjian, Kongzan, the 10 heavenly masters, and 3 sky fairies respectively. Now, only 1 rock was left. There was only 1 carrier rock, but it must block enemies in many places. Remembering his joke of fighting 3 realms, he felt like it was ridiculous. I can't get out of it now, however, what else could he do anyway? Almost everyone knew that he had an ultimate treasure and wanted to take it from him by force. If you can't find a solution, Nalan Mingxiu seemed to be stating a fact. I suggest you make a choice and give up some people. No. Mr. Fang replied. What can you do then? At this moment, he thought of someone. Haven't you heard that only kids do multiple choice questions? Mr. Fang reached out his hand and said, I want them all. Nalan Mingxiu was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, after taking several ultimate treasures that had guarded the Saint Emperor place for countless years, Profound Spell High Holiness was walking down the Saint Emperor Mountain with great smugness. If this trip is successful, while riding on colorful clouds, he led some elders to cross the vast ocean and travel toward the demon-slaying platform. On the way, they suddenly saw a bright light beam lightly landing on a high mountain and illuminating a large territory. It turned the sun and created many clouds. These immortals were surprised and said, How come I've never seen this mountain before? Lowering the clouds, these immortals entered the mountain curiously and clicked their tongues at the wonders they saw. It was indeed a great immortal mountain with evergreen pine trees and boulders that had existed for tens of thousands of years. I wonder which mountainous immortal lives here. They were about to venture deeper in when a voice came from behind, Deist friends, please wait. Who is it? TL note, FBI liked this chapter. Chapter 933 Shen Gong Bao instigates profound spell High Holiness defection. Translator, Noodletown Translations Editor, Noodletown Translations. With these spiritual treasures, he was sure that few people in this world could harm him. Therefore, regardless of the stranger's cultivation strength, profound spell High Holiness looked back with great confidence, thinking, humph. If he dares to show any ill intentions, I'll test my new spiritual treasures on him. He turned around and saw it was a deist riding on a tiger. Profound spell High Holiness said cautiously, Deist friend, who are you? Where are you from? The deist said with a smile, I'm Shen Gongbeo from the Kunlun faction. Kunlun. Profound spell High Holiness thought for a long while but couldn't remember a place called Kunlun. Thinking of the countless hermits in the innumerable immortal sea, he thought it wasn't strange that he didn't know about this place. Perhaps it's a name that these mountainous immortals gave for the place, and it's natural that I don't know about it. Deist friend Shen. Lately, the 8 immortal families had been recruiting masters with rare abilities from everywhere, and profound spell High Holiness showed his habitual benign face and said, I wonder what business you have here, Deist friend. Shen Gongbeo said, I came especially for you, Deist friend. For me. Profound spell High Holiness was even more confused. I've never met you before, however, at second thought, he realized that even though he didn't know this immortal, the latter might know him, the famous profound spell High Holiness from the immortal Gui family. He immediately corrected himself and said, what can I do for you, Deist friend? He wasn't worried that this immortal was here to block him. After all, with these powerful ultimate treasures with him, even 100 such independent immortals were not his match. Then, he heard Shen Gongbeo speak while laughing, I heard that you and other members of immortal families encountered some difficulties when you went down to the lower region to kill demons. Now you have returned to the Saint Emperor Palace to fetch spiritual treasures and are on the way to the mortal world and fight the demons. Is it true? Despite the secrecy of his mission, profound spell High Holiness knew that he couldn't hide the fact that he had returned to the Saint Emperor Palace. He thought this stranger only knew about his trip to fetch the treasures and not his true intentions. Therefore, he nodded and said, yes. Shen Gongbeo continued, after the deaths of the spirit generals and several of your good friends, you still don't understand the situation and will go down to the lower regions so recklessly. Have you discovered the background of those immortals and the treasures? Profound spell High Holiness shook his head. Isn't it sect master Tong Tian? I think he's just a hermit from innumerable immortal sea, and he just gave himself the name of Tong Tian. Shen Gongbeo said with a smile, this is a big issue. Throughout history, did anyone do such important missions without planning it first? Profound spell High Holiness thought for a moment and shook his head while replying, no. Why are you acting so recklessly then? Shen Gongbeo asked again. Profound spell High Holiness said, the immortal masters have made the plan. Deist friend, you don't need to worry about it. He thought, you don't know my true purpose, I don't need to waste my time on you. Shen Gongbeo said, I heard that the spirit generals had all been confident of themselves before they died. Before those High Holinesses were killed, they also thought that they would obtain victory without question. Now, Deist friend, you act so recklessly without knowing the dangers that are awaiting you. Aren't you following your dead friend's footsteps? Hearing these words, profound spell High Holiness's expression changed a bit. Shen Gongbeo said solemnly, according to my observation, you're not a reckless person. Who instigated you to do this? They are evil. This. Profound spell High Holiness's expression changed again as he said, I'm not reckless. In fact, even the immortal masters haven't gotten to the bottom of this issue. Shen Gongbeo said with a smile, yes. Even the immortal masters didn't get to the bottom of it, but they want you to venture into the depths of it. Aren't they asking you to die without even knowing the situation? Hearing his words, profound spell High Holiness began to sweat as he considered the situation carefully. The water in the pond is so deep that even immortal masters can't get to the bottom of it, but I'm only a High Holiness elder. But we intend to launch sneak attacks this time instead of fighting head-on. How can there be dangers? At this moment, he saw Shen Gongbeo move his fingers, looking as if he was doing some calculations. Startled, Profound Spell High Holiness immediately remembered that those immortal masters could also calculate with divination. If they couldn't find the answer but this immortal kin, does it mean that this stranger's skills at divination are higher than those immortal masters? If they could find the answer but had concealed the results from me, it would be more meaningful. He thought for a while, and Shen Gongbeo saw sweat popping out on his forehead. Then, Profound Spell High Holiness asked in alarm, Deist friend, do you have a solution? Please tell me. Shen Gongbeo shook his head and said, I don't know your mission. Since it concerns the immortal masters, I don't dare to ask, it's okay. Profound Spell High Holiness felt as if he was facing a huge unknown black hole that even the immortal masters didn't understand. If he ventured into it without a plan, he might follow the path of Wondrous Spell High Holiness. After all, those dead people's souls hadn't returned yet. If their souls survived, they could still reincarnate. But if the souls were gone? He shivered at the thought. Hearing Shen Gongbeo's words, he seemed to see a lifeline in an ocean as he was drowning. I can only explain it briefly to you and won't say anything important. Deist friend, you have a meticulous mind. Can you give me some advice? Then, he explained the plan briefly. Shen Gongbeo's expression turned grim after hearing his words. Seeing his expression, Profound Spell High Holiness looked even more anxious. He quickly asked, Deist friend, what do you think? Shen Gongbeo said, Deist friend, you'll be in big trouble, how come you are still not aware of it? What do you mean? Profound Spell High Holiness thought that even if he failed the mission, he could still flee with the help of these spiritual treasures. How come I'm in big trouble? Shen Gongbeo said, let's not talk about if you'll succeed or not. Deist friend, have you ever considered what would happen if you succeeded? If I succeeded? Profound Spell High Holiness said in puzzlement, of course, I'll be rewarded by the immortal masters. What do you think? Shen Gongbeo said, this is when the real trouble comes. Deist, after you threaten that figure with the lives of his friends and relatives, will that person hate your guts? Profound Spell High Holiness laughed, of course. But, he will be turned into a fierce ghost. I'll beat his soul out with one palm strike. Deist friend, don't you understand? Shen Gongbeo said, I think perhaps it's you who will become a fierce ghost. Me? Profound Spell High Holiness froze. Why? If you're successful, that figure in the mortal world will hate you so much that he'd want to die with you. If he is willing to hand over the ultimate treasure at the price of your life, what would you do then? Profound Spell High Holiness's heart lurched, feeling stupefied. This. He had considered it carefully, but he still hadn't thought of this move. If so. Profound Spell High Holiness sighed heavily, I'm in danger. If you fail, then it means that the lower region conceal extreme dangers. Deist friend, you might not end up better than your dead friends, I guess. Profound Spell High Holiness instantly turned ashen-faced and said in horror, you mean? I'll die both ways. Chapter 934 Break the Array. Translator, Noodletown Translations Editor, Noodletown Translations. Profound Spell High Holiness remembered that each time when a treasure came out, it had always caused a bloody catastrophe and the deaths of countless immortals. Considering the words that the deist named Shen Gongbeo had said, he instantly felt that this immortal was intelligent and mysterious. Then, do you mean that I'm the one being killed by the tribulation? Not necessarily, Shen Gongbeo said, only some people want you to be the one who needs to go through the tribulation. Deist friend, don't worry. I'm here to help you handle this tribulation. Hearing his words, Profound Spell High Holiness was elated. What's your plan? I have two plans, one is so-so while the other is better. Hear me out, Shen Gongbeo said, deist friend, if you follow the so-so plan, you can stay out of all this by hiding in a place, letting the gods, immortals, mortals and ghosts turn the world upside down with wars. But, if you do this, you can't come out ever again. Otherwise, you'll get killed. Then, what's the better plan? Profound Spell High Holiness asked again. Working with the mortal world, Shen Gongbeo said. What? Profound Spell High Holiness was instantly displeased and said, how can these mortals defeat the innumerable immortal sea? If I work with them, won't I also get killed one day? Shen Gongbeo said with a smile, deist friend, didn't you say that you couldn't get to the bottom of the issue of the mortal world? Why don't you take this opportunity to enter their camp and find out the real power that they have? If they really can't defeat the innumerable immortal sea, with your power, isn't it a piece of cake to run? With these spiritual treasures in your hand, won't you live a great life anywhere you want? You're right, deist friend. Extremely delighted, Profound Spell High Holiness said, now that the ultimate treasures I took from the Saint Emperor Palace are mine to use, the least that I can do is finding an immortal abode to understand the mysteries contained in them and cultivate diligently. Regardless of how fierce they are, no one can mess with me after my cultivation strength grows to a higher level. If that place has powers that I don't know right now and defeats the innumerable immortal sea, you can take the position of the biggest hero with these ultimate treasures. Shen Gongbeo said, isn't it a better life than being a chess piece under others' manipulation? Understanding dawned on Profound Spell High Holiness. Thanks for your advice, my deadly situation is now totally reversed. Then, he said farewell to Shen Gongbeo and went to help the Origins Internet Club with all the ultimate treasures that he had taken from the Saint Emperor Palace. Shortly, another deist dressed in green clothes was flying toward the demon-slaying platform with his sleeves flapping in the winds. He was Vast Spell High Holiness. With a glowing face, he was feeling very good after taking some spiritual treasures from innumerable tribulation immortal palace. I'm impatient to see the faces of those ignorant and arrogant mortals when the time comes. Ha 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 ha, he burst out laughing. With these spiritual treasures, who in the mortal world could block him? Suddenly, he saw an immortal mountain before him. With steep cliffs, the mountain had all kinds of immortal beasts wandering through the deep forests. Hey! As he was enjoying the scenery in fascination, a voice came from behind him. Deist friend, please wait. Who is it? He looked back abruptly. Looking around, he saw a deist flying over from the distant sky while riding on a tiger. He looked at the deist curiously. Where are you from, deist friend? 3 minutes later, with the spiritual treasures from innumerable tribulation immortal palace, the old man who was wearing a wide green robe descended to the lower region to help the Origins Internet Club, looking arrogant and aggressive. At the demon-slaying platform, a deist dressed in a yellow robe was about to descend. He was Vital Spell High Holiness. With ultimate treasures from Avidya Immortal Palace, he was about to descend to deal with the ordinary and powerless mortals. He said with a chuckle, the immortal masters are too cautious. I can accomplish this mission with my own power. I'm afraid that I'll have no chance to use these spiritual treasures. He had taken 2 steps forward when a voice came from behind him, Deist friend, please wait. With a shiver, he put his hand on the spiritual treasures hanging at his belt subconsciously. He would attack without hesitation if any danger appeared. He looked back immediately. Who is it? I'm Shen Gongbeo from the Kunlun faction. A deist came out riding on a tiger. Vital Spell High Holiness chuckled. It is just a mountainous deist, I'm being paranoid. I'm still in the immortal realm, what's there to be afraid of? He chuckled in his mind. Even if he's an enemy, with his low cultivation strength, he's no match for my spiritual treasures. He walked over and asked, Deist friend, what's going on? Less than 5 minutes later, a ferocious deist dressed in a yellow robe aggressively descended to the lower region to help the Origins Internet Club with the ultimate treasures that he had gotten from Avidya Immortal Palace in his pockets. At this moment, the three immortal masters, Dragon Pool, innumerable tribulations, and Avidya, and the immortal troops were stationed dozens of kilometers away from the new shop at the east continent in the campsite. Avidya immortal deist moved his fingers and did some calculations. It has been days since profound spell, vast spell, and vital spell went to do the mission. They should be back any moment now. They should, Dragon Pool immortal master said, we've done enough stalling with that kid. If we continue doing it, I'm afraid that he will see our true intentions. Innumerable tribulations immortal master laughed and said with a nod, I can feel the presences of profound, vast, and vital. Let's go. I'll teach this evil being a good lesson for making me stay in the lower region for so long. He slammed his hand on the handle of his chair and stood up with an aggressive expression. With murderous spirit in his eyes, he gazed at the distance. It seems like we have a good show to watch today. Avidya immortal master walked out of the tent while laughing, hear my command, troops. Follow me and destroy the demons in the mortal world. Yes. The thunderous yells shook the heavens and earth. The sky above Mr. Fang's shop had gradually calmed down, but now dark clouds gathered and swept across the sky. Shouts and yells rose from the ocean of clouds and shook the sky. Mr. Fang walked out of the shop, looked up at the sky and saying, What? You've come up with a way to break the array today. Yes. Dragon Pool immortal master sneered, Today, I'll show you how this array is broken without us doing anything. Before them, the 600 cultivators and warriors instantly built the array outside the shop. Yellow winds swept across the space and blocked the sun and sky. It was the 9-turn Yellow River array. Sitting in the array, the 3 sky fairies waited for them to try and break the array. The 3 immortal masters sat in their carriages while other immortals flanked them on both sides, showcasing the former's extremely noble positions. With a wave of his arm, one of the immortal masters yelled, Vast spell, vital spell, and profound spell, where are you? Why don't you hurry up and help us break this array? You have no idea what kind of existences are behind us. Translator, Noodletown Translations Editor, Noodletown Translations Old Farts, die. Before they could understand what was happening, the 3 immortal masters were instantly devoured by a big wave of spiritual light. They all looked disheveled when they got out. Looking at vast spell, vital spell, and profound spell as if they were ghosts, the immortal masters said, What has happened to these 3? Regardless of how hard they thought, they couldn't understand the situation. The 3 immortal elders had been sent to fetch treasures in the immortal realm and travel back to the mortal world. How come in the blink of an eye, they are attacking us with the spiritual treasures that we gave them? Could it be? The 3 immortal masters exchanged a look and felt extremely weird. Perhaps this ultimate treasure can even bewitch people. While they were wondering, a golden light shot out from the horizon. The golden light swept toward them, intending to engulf them. Horrified, the 3 immortal masters launched several spiritual treasures which were all ultimate immortal treasures that had been in their precious collection for countless years. However, under the golden light released from the gold dipper, these treasures had all been instantly sucked away like straws in a tornado. What the heck is this treasure? When profound spell High Holiness and other High Holinesses lost their treasures earlier, it was blamed on their unfamiliarity with the control of those spiritual treasures. But now, even their best treasures couldn't withstand that golden light for one moment before falling into the gold dipper. The 3 immortal masters had thought that the 3 fairies could at most break even with them with this spiritual treasure, just like how Deist Immortal had boasted of his own strength in front of the Yellow River array after the 12 golden immortals were captured. Realization only dawned on them after everything already took place. No. Dragon Pool Immortal Master yelled, the power of this treasure is far greater than we expected. Almost instantly, Avidya Immortal Master's expression changed drastically. Dragon Pool Immortal Master shook his hand, and a turbid and yellow ancient scroll spread out. Instantly, the scroll blocked the sky and the sun as well as the great golden light from the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper for 1 second. Immediately, the 3 of them turned into 3 colorful light beams and fled. From the direction of the colorful light beams in the distance, a voice said with shock and fury, "Hurry, hurry up and enlist the help of Saint Patriarch. B** starts, don't run." With a crisp yell, Green Sky Fairy immediately followed them. Then, the other two Sky Fairies chased after them with strong murderous spirits. The three immortal masters had stayed before the array for a long time but only sent elders to test the waters without revealing themselves. Now that they finally got a chance to capture these three, the three Sky Fairies wouldn't let this opportunity escape. With the light of the golden scissors before them, the three flew up in clouds while riding on their mounts in the blink of an eye. "Don't let them go." Mr. Fang's face darkened. "The three immortals are evil, we can't let them go." He immediately chased after them. Chasing after the three immortal masters, the three Sky Fairies went through the barrier between the immortal realm and the mortal world and crossed the innumerable immortal sea. Chased by the Golden Dragon Scissors and the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper, the three immortal masters fled frantically to an unknown place. In the distance, they seemed to see a tall immortal mountain with immortal clouds floating around it. Without thinking, the three immortal masters shot into the immortal mountain frantically. "Older sister, let's follow them." Green Sky Fairy yelled and chased after them. Coming after them, Fang Qi looked at the immortal mountain. After a moment of consideration, he also shot into the mountain, following them closely. In the mountain, the peaks and green forests stood like strange barriers as birds and beasts ran through them. The three immortal masters landed on the mountain and walked down a mountainous path. The moment that Fang Qi entered the mountain, a strange force pulled him down from the sky. He saw a stone table on one side of the path before him. Sitting across to each other at the stone table were two old men, one in a purple robe and the other in a yellow robe. They were engrossed in playing chess and seemed oblivious of the three Sky Fairies and Fang Qi. They blocked the path with mild expressions. The deist wearing the yellow silk robe and hemp shoes with his hair pulled up in a deist bun slightly looked up and glanced at the three Sky Fairies and Fang Qi casually. "Who are you? How dare you block our way?" With cold expressions, the three Sky Fairies demanded. The yellow-robed deist sized up the three Sky Fairies and Fang Qi coldly and yelled in a harsh tone, "Evil beings! How dare you act so atrociously at Wild Tribulation Summit?" The purple-robed deist glanced at them coldly. "Who are your masters? Maybe I know them. Even your masters wouldn't dare to act arrogantly on this mountain. The juniors nowadays are getting more and more unruly." "Who are you?" Cloud Sky Fairy asked. "Older sister, don't waste your breath on them." Green Sky Fairy said, "Since they are blocking us, they must be accomplices of those three immortal masters. Let's use the Golden Dragon Scissors and Chaos Essence Golden Dipper and give them a taste of our power." When she said those words, the two old men didn't move a muscle. Instead, they sneered. Then, a golden light of scissors cut toward the yellow-robed deist. Before it came close, it was sent to one side by an invisible force. The Golden Dragon Scissors couldn't harm a hair of his. Then, the three Sky Fairies launched the Chaos Essence Golden Dipper. Before its golden light got close, the yellow-robed deist brushed it aside with his wide sleeve. Only at this moment did the three immortal masters stick their heads out of behind the strange-shaped boulder. Walking out from behind the boulder, they said with great respect, "To Saint Patriarchs. We were hunted down by them and didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive us." The yellow-robed deist waved at them and then looked at Fang Qi and his companions. "You hunted down immortal masters of our clan and even tried to commit murder on Wild Tribulation Summit, you're audacious." Fang Qi couldn't sense any presence from these two old men, and that made them feel like bottomless abysses. Fang Qi didn't dare to make any careless moves. He had only felt this way with only one kind of people. They might represent the unreachable summit of this world. Standing before such existences, even Fang Qi felt a sense of fear instinctively. "Are you afraid now?" Innumerable Tribulation Immortal Master said with a sneer, "Do you understand now? You were doomed to fail from the very beginning. He looked at Fang Qi and his companions as if they were dead people. People all think that us, the immortal masters who rule the immortal families, are the most powerful existences in the innumerable immortal sea, but it's a ridiculous misunderstanding. Defeating us means nothing. You have no idea what kind of existences are behind us. Now, do you understand? And Chapter 936 One essence turns into three pure ones, the final battle is about to begin. Translator, Noodletown Translations Editor, Noodletown Translations. I'm afraid that with such immortals and gods like you, how can this world have peace? As the heavens has lost order, the land is destroyed, and the sky is shattered, the world is on the brink of collapse. Have you guys ever experienced the suffering in the mortal world? Have you ever tried to stop the collapse of heaven and restore the order of heaven and earth? You sealed the void and stopped mortals from obtaining Dao. In the passage of time, tens of thousands of Dao pursuers had ended their lives with regret. Fang Qi pointed at the mortal world below them and said, "Have you heard the sad weeping and furious roars of the heroes who couldn't realize their great dreams in the past tens of thousands of years? The mortals worship you by burning incense sticks and holding sacrificial ceremonies. Do you deserve their worship in the past tens of thousands of years?" "No," Fang Qi said with a snicker, "how could you call yourselves immortal or sages? What did you do to deserve the title of immortals and sages? Who gave you the right to call yourselves immortals and sages? I live a lawful life in the mortal world, but you threaten my life again and again. Now you dare to accuse me of acting atrociously and behaving recklessly. Ridiculous." The yellow-robed deist was so furious that he laughed and said, "We were born with the heaven and earth, bear the fortune that equal to heaven and share the Dao essence of the heaven and earth. Born as the masters of heaven and earth, our words are heavenly laws. You mortals broke the heavenly laws and will be punished with the death penalty. You even dare to break into the Wild Tribulation Summit and try to kill these immortal masters," the deist said with a ferocious sneer, "evil being. You even dare to lecture us. Don't waste your breath on him," the other deist said. Then, the yellow-robed deist waved his big sleeve, and the heavens and earth, as well as the sun and moon, seemed to change positions. An extremely horrifying force crashed toward Fang Qi and the three sky fairies. Even the three sky fairies turned pale, let alone Fang Qi, who felt as if all his bones and meridians would break under this huge force. It felt as if the entire heaven and earth had received some order and were pressing down on Fang Qi from all directions with a vicious force. Dragon Pool Immortal Master and the other Immortal Masters sneered at this sight. They seemed to have foreseen this ending long ago. "It reminds me of something." At this moment, Dragon Pool Immortal Master said with a snicker, "Among the mortals, there was once a figure in the primeval time who taught these ignorant creatures the art of language and essence cultivation. Some even achieved a cultivation strength that could rival that of an immortal. After the transformation of the heaven and earth, they ascended to the immortal realm and had the honor to temper immortal physiques. Some members of other races even became gods as well, and they were worshipped by their clansmen for tens of thousands of years. But," Dragon Pool Immortal Master said coldly, "unfortunately, they only taught a group of wastrels. In our eyes, ants are just ants. The scum don't even have the right to be cannon fodder. Those who didn't die on the battleground are all respectful to our families. You're immortals who have just obtained your immortal physiques. If you think that you can now mess with our patriarch, that is ridiculous. You're just human immortals. Even after you cultivate for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or even 10 million years, you are still no match for us. This is the mandate of heaven. Today, you evil creatures will get the chance to see our power and the gap between you and us. When your souls are scattered, you'll die without regret." The yellow-robed deist waved his sleeve, and the force turned heavier and was about to shatter everyone into dust at any moment. At this moment, Fang Qi must use his last trump card, which was the godly summon rock that he had obtained. Although it had a restriction on the level of characters that it could summon, it was different from the carrier rocks since it didn't need synchronization rate. There was only one such rock, these items were extremely precious as they were all created by the system energy. Suddenly, clouds opened, and the mist disappeared in the sky. A wave of pure lights covered the sky while auspicious colorful clouds danced in it. Almost at the same time, the heaven and earth cleared up as the heavy pressure suppressing Fang Qi and the three sky fairies instantly vanished. Who is blocking me? The yellow-robed deist remained in his attack posture, but the force had vanished long ago. Looking up at the sky, he saw a deist coming over while riding on a black ox. Meanwhile, all of the glamorous light in the heavens and earth went away as a pure light shot up into the sky. Who are you? No one, including the immortal masters, had imagined that someone could block the attack from this saint patriarch. Breaking the chaos and revealing the heaven and earth, he established 5 elements in the mortal world. Guiding Xian Yuan to immortality, he showed power at Han Fortress with Dao that is eternal. Lao Zi sang the poem. I'm the Ren sect master, Lao Zi Li Er. I heard you say that all immortals who were once mortals are ants. Lao Zi said with a smile, ever since Pan Gu separated the heaven from the earth, I've merged my body with the heaven and created the 3 pure ones with 1 streak of pure essence. After being the master of Ren sect for so long, I've never heard of the things that you just mentioned. Today, I'll see if I, with my human origin, will look like an ant in your eyes too. What Ren sect? Are you in charge of a group of evil monkeys? The Cloud Sky Fairy and her sisters said in a hurry, Greetings, Uncle Master. Lao Zi nodded and said with a snort, These ignorant animals are audacious. Hurry up and attack. The Saint Patriarch of the 8 major immortal families were not ordinary immortals. At this moment, winds howled as the universe shook. Lightning bolts showered down like raindrops, shaking the mountains and rivers. As the yellow-robed deist circulated his spiritual energy, lightning snakes lit up the sky and the land while murderous spirit filled the 9th heaven. On the other side, an exquisite pagoda rose from the top of Lao Zi's head with clouds and settled the universe. The yellow-robed deist's face turned cold. Although he hadn't used all his strength yet, he couldn't inflict any damage on the immortal before him. Xian Huang Saint Master, I'll help you. At this moment, the other Saint Master entered the fray, attacking Lao Zi from the other side. This evil being is powerful. The deist yelled, Let's see if you can fight both of us. Why not? At this moment, Lao Zi split into 3 as colorful light beams rose high into the sky with dazzling radiance. Lao Zi had split into 3 forms. Being old before heaven was formed, yet I was born after heaven, I obtained the form and my name through the Li family. I learned and cultivated under Hung Jun, so I can turn 1 essence into the 3 pure ones. Lao Zi sang the words and said with a smile, Even if a pearl is as tiny as a grain, it will still be radiant. Even if 2 more come, I can fight 4 of you at the same time. At this moment, Xian Huang Saint Master was almost dazed by the scene, and the 3 immortal masters shivered uncontrollably. The 2 lofty Saint Masters are being suppressed by only 1 immortal right in front of us? They exchanged a look of horror. Who the heck is this being? This scene almost turned every idea that they had formed in their heads in the past tens of thousands of years upside down. More horrifying was that an extremely giant Tai Chi pattern rose in the sky, blocking the sky and the sun. It was coming down from the sky toward them. There was no exit for them, either on the land or in the sky. Go! At this moment, seeing the Tai Chi pattern coming toward them, even the 2 Saint Masters of the immortal families were horrified and fled immediately. In the next moment, the 3 immortal masters fell into the Tai Chi pattern and were instantly turned into dust. Their souls went directly toward the God's investiture platform. On this day, 3 realms experienced huge quakes. As the most powerful existences in the 3 realms, their lives, which had lasted for countless years, and their permanent reign were severely threatened now. None of them could sit back and wait to be butchered. In a permanent godly palace above the heaven, a pair of permanent eyes slowly opened. It gazed at the place below the bottomless abyss. Even such a lofty existence had a grim look in its eyes. How about, a voice came from the abyss. Let's join hands. Where's the ferocious godly army? A voice seemed to fall from the top of heaven. In the distant battleground of gods and demons, many withered corpses and remains crawled out from the deep underground of the desolate battleground. They seemed to have been buried in the ground for countless years. Some were thin and dry and could only be recognized as elves from their long ears. Some were big orcs with broken armor. There were countless cultivators and warriors who raised their long swords high. They roared with defiance as their faces turned toward the sky, looking as vivid as when they were alive. In the ruins, the broken walls and buildings seemed to be telling their glorious past and the stories that had been buried in dust long ago. Now, they were only shells and corpses that were being controlled like the living dead wearing a set of shattered armor. The blank eyes of the slim and tall elf suddenly lit up with green gloomy glint. In the elf forest, an exquisite figure wearing a long dress and a silver-haired senior were devotedly staring at the lake, which was as bright as a mirror. First Elder Hyru's eyes looked sad. It has been so many years, has our god abandoned us long ago? Suddenly, a streak of dark light suddenly lit up in the lake. The elf god answered us. It had been so many years. They jumped and cheered, looking as happy as kids who had just received candies. Ancestral Master, some deists asked him, you have a patriarch? Of course. Ancestral Master Xiao Ao said proudly, my patriarch was once a disciple of an immortal master. He had heaven-reaching cultivation strength and ultimate talents. I heard that he later ascended to heaven and became an immortal. Now that you mention it, I remember that immortal master had the same surname as the shop owner. He laughed, seeming to be in a good mood to have the rare opportunity to talk about his past. At that time, the East Continent and the West Continent hadn't separated yet, and my patriarch even knew people from some of the other clans, such as the elves. I wonder if they met each other in the high region. Hearing his words, the other deists looked expectant. Suddenly, Ancestral Master, look at the tablet. They widened their eyes, seeming to have sensed a special presence from that tablet. This didn't only happen to the people on the East Continent. Races such as orcs and dwarves also experienced similar things. A series of legendary figures who had been revered and worshipped for countless generations, their presences seemed to have woken up. Even in the Liu Yun Deist Palace in the continent of Immortal Relic. Palace Master, look, in the shrine, a nameless memorial tablet emitted a weak presence for no reason. Perhaps this world had forgotten them long ago, but they finally began to rekindle like cinder. But this time, the ferocious godly army has been awakened. Above the godly court, two voices said the same words. On the top of the whole world, in the palace that ruled both the gods' palace and the innumerable immortal sea, even the immortals from innumerable immortal sea and the gods from the gods' palace were on their knees. Before them was the highest will that lorded over the whole world. The godly court seemed to be even older than this world. From the time before the world was created, from the ultimate high position, it had watched as the whole world and the long river of time moved forward. The pre-heaven gods, immortals, and sages now all shed their arrogance and defiance, looking as respectful as if they were seeing their master and lord. It was said that these pre-heaven life forms were taught by this being, so it wasn't wrong if they called him master. In this holy court, only the king that ruled the gods and the sages that led the immortals had the right to speak. These extremely powerful existences seemed to have known something or had prepared long ago. The sages and the gods lowered their heads on their knees and listened to the most ancient lord of this world. Above their heads was the vague universe, and constellations and nebulae seemed to be surging and moving in it. It wasn't a form but a will, an ultimate spiritual will that existed beyond forms. Perhaps it had appeared in many different forms. But now, it was intangible and formless. At this moment, it was silent, but everyone seemed to understand its message. Mortals will never control the heaven and earth. At this moment, immortals, gods, and demons all looked at the mortal world, which looked as small as a bead in their eyes. Murderous spirits shot out of their eyes and up into the sky. You will be destroyed in this world together with these mortals. This time, the immortals, gods, and demons would join hands and destroy the mortal world first. Things after that would depend on their own abilities. When the gods and demons were angry, heaven would fall, and the earth would be destroyed. They seemed to be telling these stupid and ignorant mortals who were the true lords of this world. In less than one day, a phenomenon that no one had thought of or dared to think of happened in the work. In the new shop at the East Continent, Zhang Xiaoyu had just stepped out when she felt the heaven and earth shaking violently. Countless rare beasts flew up from the faction in panic. In the distant mountains, countless birds were startled and flew up from the forest. What's happening? In the elf forest that was as beautiful as green jade, elf girl Sala tried to comfort an elk. The mild-tempered wild beasts had suddenly turned restless. Then, with a sad cry, the elk fled into the depths of the forest as if it had become crazy. The heaven and earth turned chilly and gloomy while all creatures became frantic. Wild gusts seemed to be playing a sad and magnificent tune for the living beings between heaven and earth. The mountains and rivers turned red as fires spread to everywhere. Perhaps this was the true catastrophe, the world-ending tribulation. The cultivators, warriors, and mages in the continent of immortal relics, the East Continent, and the West Continent seemed to feel a deep melancholy as if the whole world was weeping and howling for the imminent fate. At this moment, the elf forest was ripped apart from the middle, looking as if a beautiful piece of jade suddenly broke in half. Looking at the sky, black clouds had completely blocked the sky on this side and engulfed the whole world. Meanwhile, blinding golden light covered the other half of the sky. Black and white, pure and turbid, they merged with each other beyond the heaven and formed one force. Those supreme existences' power was more than what this world could withstand. But in this battle, they stepped into this world without restraining their strength, disregarding any damage that they might afflict on the earth. This world is ridiculously fragile, a voice came from the sky. Be careful, these guys are not easy to handle, a deist said in a cold voice. Xianzhong Saint Master. An extremely miraculous and strange figure materialized in the black wind. Don't boost the enemy's morale and underestimate our own power. When the array appeared in the sky, it shattered the whole sky like a horrifying forbidden spell. Endless thunders howled, and horrifying black thunderbolts poured down from the dark void beyond the sky. Crack! As the sky shattered, countless black thunderbolts poured down like a black waterfall with great horror, knocking down countless mountains and cracked the land. The whole world seemed to be destroyed by this force and returned to the chaotic state at the beginning of time. This was the world where the mortals lived in, it contained all their beautiful memories. But at this moment, it seemed to come to an end. No. With wicked facial expressions, countless people raised their heads and roared in fury, looking crazy. But they could do nothing as they watched the distant sky shatter and even more horrifying disasters coming to the mortal world. They watched as the gods and demons ran rampant in the sky. Those existences who they had worshipped now brought them the most horrifying despair without moving a finger. With their eyes wide in fury, some of these mortals shouted and charged up, but they were instantly struck by lightning bolts and fires that were falling from the sky. They turned into blocks of charcoal before dropping to the ground. Outside the Zhuhua city shop, Song Qingfeng, Su Zixin, Nalan Mingxiu, and the others who no longer looked soft and immature, as well as many civilian warriors such as Liang Shi and Fu Jianghe, slowly raised their heads and looked up at the sky. This was the world where they lived. However, it was being cruelly trampled by others. When the innumerable immortal sea, God's palace, and ninefold darkness began to retreat, everyone thought that the worst had passed. However, no one had imagined that, compared with the previous wars, this was the real catastrophe that was going to destroy the world. At this moment, everyone realized that they had only defeated a tiny number of these extremely powerful existences. In the previous wars, they had shown only a very small portion of their strength. Now, as their truly stunning force was revealed, everyone looked horrified. On the continents, people walked out from buildings one by one and looked up. Perhaps they had been the happiest when they were ignorant. Working each day as the sun rose and resting as the sun fell, people were bound by the invisible laws of nature. They were ignorant but also were free of pain and fear. If nothing unexpected happened, perhaps the whole world would go on like this until it dissolved into nothing one day without people noticing it. The closer they got to the truth, the more they felt that the world was just an abyss of endless darkness in the ocean. Perhaps the world before them was hell. The people who tried to resist had all been destroyed. What a fragile world! I even feel like it will collapse if I put one finger on it, a voice said while sneering. It showed itself from the darkness like an evil devil that had brought endless horror to this world. With 3 heads, 8 legs, a human face, and 2 horns, it spoke the human language but was cold and inhumane. One could see the undisguised evilness from its face. The world had its dark side and bright side, and this being undoubtedly represented the deepest darkness. The sky was filled with both black and white light. Darkness and light started to merge in one place in the sky. It was a scene that no one had ever seen before. No one could remain intact before this force since this force controlled the whole world. Once a human did the same stupid thing, and he ended up dying on this land. A heroic-looking god who was wearing golden armor and a crown gazed at the land as he sat on a huge silverish white dragon. Is this man his reincarnation? Even if he is, can he change his predestined fate? A saint master dressed in a purple daist robe gazed at the world below them coldly. That ultimate treasure has stayed in the mortal world for a long time. It seems like these mortals have obtained some of its presence. Then, we must kill them all, the evil devil said chillily. It's the ultimate fortune that has been nurtured by the heaven and earth for countless years. How can we share it with these bugs? We must take it out as a whole. Countless years had passed. An ultimate thought from that loftiest existence flashed across the minds of these gods and evil demons. It's time for harvest. Ferocious godly army. A voice seemed to come from beyond the heaven. Only one voice remained. Roar. Mind-disturbing whistles seemed to rise from their souls, and the heaven and earth seemed to merge again. As gusts howled, thick grey mist rose and engulfed the whole world. It's the elf god. In the elf kingdom, elf queen Kelebel and first elder Hyru watched as the mist spread. However, the mirror-like lake looked even clearer as if it was welcoming its creator. Perhaps, the elf god has descended to the lower region. He returned to see us. Elf Queen Kelebel and First Elder Hyru led the elders to walk up to welcome the god, trembling in excitement. The patriarch is coming back. In the East Continent and even the continent of immortal relics, the people in the major factions were thrilled. After all, these patriarchs were the figures who they boasted about for generations. Palace Master, look! Standing outside the ancestor shrine with other cultivators behind him, Shwedaelv stared at the strange phenomenon intently. That patriarch is the most ancient one of our Liu-Yundaist palace. With a smug face, Shwedaelv showed off his knowledge and whispered to the disciples beside him, "It's said, our Liu-Yundaist palace is only a side branch of the side branch established by this patriarch. It happened everywhere in the world such as the Orc Kingdom, the Elf Forest, and Liu-Yundaist Palace." Fog rose, and it was as chilly and gloomy as frost. A blurry and twisted figure walked over from the fog. Everyone's cheers stopped, and their excited expressions froze on their faces. Then, their faces turned wicked in horror, and they yelled with fear, What's this?" In the Elf Royal Palace, a figure slowly walked out of the misty shadows. With half of its withered face concealed under the cape, it pulled out a rusty strange bow to the fullest and aimed it at all the elves before it. It looked exactly like the grand statue outside the royal palace. "That's," First Elder Hyru almost shocked. "The godly technique, Moonfall." With a humming sound, his mind turned blank. Almost subconsciously, he lunged to one side. In the next moment, he looked back and saw several astonished elders being devoured by the white light that was shooting up into the sky. Meanwhile, an invisible force seemed to spread between heaven and earth. "No, it's no longer the elf god," Elf Queen Kelebel said in a shaky voice. They were filled with despair. In this final tribulation, their God didn't bring them redemption but destruction. It happened not only in the elf forest but in the factions such as Liu Yundaist Palace and all the kingdoms in the west continent. It felt as if a massacre had begun. That's the immortal technique 10,000 li flowing clouds. According to the legends, it's the most powerful immortal technique in the mortal world. In Liu Yundaist Palace, the holy cultivation place full of flowers and flowing white clouds, countless disciples who had been anticipating the descent of their patriarch were plunged into a shower of blood. Screams and howls rose in waves. They still looked astonished since none of them had anticipated such a thing. What they saw was the fate of the losers. Perhaps one day, they would become like this too. While they were worshipped by the future generations, they already became puppets and butcher knives of other beings and would slash cold blades at their descendants. Chapter 939 We'll be writing our own legends, too. The evil demon with 3 heads and 8 legs waved its hand and controlled one part of the world by force. A destructive and colorful light beam crashed down with a long fiery tail like a comet smashing toward the sun, turning the entire heaven and earth red. Some people even suspected that the whole land would be destroyed by this horrifying attack. A young man flew up below the comet-like light and was instantly engulfed by it. This was the ultimatum of destruction launched by the 3 most powerful civilizations in this era. 8 Saint Masters, 10 of the most ancient pre-heaven gods, and 12 primeval devil gods. They stood in different directions on the top of the sky and watched coldly as the humans struggled and died before their weak presences gathered in one place between the heaven and earth. Is this our fate? Will we face the destruction this way? What should we do? In the whole world, mortals, cultivators, and warriors found countless voices talking inside their minds. Endless negative emotions filled their minds as chills ran down their bodies. This was the real state that they were in. Origin plan. Activate. A voice seemed to come from the distant ancient time. The chilly murderous spirit reversed like torrents pouring out of the Yellow River. In Liu Yundaist Palace, Shwedaelv paused his steps and took off his outer robe as the palace master. His eyes were full of steadiness and calmness that he had when he dealt with countless monsters far more powerful than himself. Just as we did before. In the Elf Royal Palace, Elf Queen Kelebel quickly calmed down after the initial shock. An extremely pure golden lightning bolt exploded in her hand. Now, we have surpassed you. Leaning on his walking cane, Gu Tingyun squinted his eyes, and a surge of pure essence shot up into the sky. The remaining disciples. Listen to my order. Form the array. Inside Liu Yundaist Palace, with the thunder light jumping in her palm, Su Tianji yelled in a cold tone. In the place of her usual laziness, a chilly heroic glint flashed in her eyes, making her look like a true immortal. Get ready, Zhongwu held a short blade, and the heaven and earth suddenly dimmed. Attack! The talented young people such as Song Qingfeng had shed their youthful softness long ago. Right now, except for those who had gone back to their factions to honor their ancestors, everyone else from the East Continent and the West Continent had gathered together in large numbers regardless if they were facing immortals, gods, mortals, and ghosts. A purple flying sword emitted chilly light which shook the 9th heaven. Facing the pouring enemies, tens of thousands of swords shot up into the sky from behind. Innumerable sword immortal technique. With spiritual energy floating under their feet, the paladins had holy spiritual essence flowing in their bodies. Zeal. Bestow faith. Judgment. Sword 23. Destroying all 6 paths. Nalan Hongwu launched sword energies from his palm, and the sword spirits that was many times more powerful than the world-destroying sword 23 shattered an immortal like a dazzling godly light beam. Fist of the Heavens. Saint Leiden followed closely, and his power as a paladin turned into a thick light pillar and almost pierced a huge hole in the sky. Your era is in the past. The joint army of immortals, gods, and demons swarmed up like torrents and giant waves. However, the mortals charged head-on fearlessly. They had understood why they must raise their swords. They had no exit but no regrets either. This wasn't a catastrophe since, we'll be writing our own legends. Face the wind. Wind and fire surged up as the two torrents crashed into each other. Fang Qi was holding a stone tablet on which were written the words God's investiture list. At this moment, the system interface showed that he had finished the task to severely punish the previous troublemakers. He had turned the immortal masters who led that invade to dust. However, he didn't expect things to deteriorate so fast. Unlock the highest level privileges. Fang Qi looked up at the comet-like colorful light beam that would fall on his head in the next moment, and then he glanced at the extremely powerful existences whose expressions were either icy and chilly or solemn and cold. Bring it on! Come and try with your full strength. A gold bridge spread out, separating heaven from the earth and the gods and demons from the mortals. It also stopped the collapse of the world below the bridge. At this moment, golden light and purple clouds shot up into the sky. It looked as if jade towers and gold palaces appeared at the top of the void. The river of heaven flowed, stars blinked brightly, shining on everywhere, and colorful phoenixes soared. Dressed in gold armor, countless strong soldiers stood tall under the flapping flags. Like on a primeval scroll, the legendary names lit up one by one. Radiant light shone in the sky as figures that only existed in the legends appeared in this world. With a 7 feet red silk ribbon fluttering in the sky, a figure appeared while stepped on golden wheels with lotus flowers in his eyes. With a vertical eye between his brows, a godly general proudly looked at the heaven and earth and shot godly thunderbolts from the 9th heaven. Heavenly masters, immortals, and gods stood on the two sides above the clouds in the sky. Further up, a few deists sat or lay in the clouds while 4 swords, immortal slaying, immortal butchering, immortal trapping, and immortal exterminating, rose in the air. Then, 3 treasure ruyi emitted purple misty essence as they appeared. In the distant sky, murderous spirits mixed with yellow essence. In the misty clouds, a huge axe appeared first, followed by a headless battle god. Then, a fiery bow appeared below 9 suns as a god with star-bright eyes stepped out and pulled the bow to the fullest. As the demon summoning flag waved, tens of thousands of demons bowed their heads. A pair of bright eyes suddenly opened, turning the sky as bright as day. With eyes like suns, a huge dragon flew up with a lantern in its mouth. Extremely grand, aggressive, overbearing, and ultimate presences rose in the east. At this moment, tens of thousands of gods descended, casting light on all eras. Between heaven and earth, countless gazes turned toward this miraculous phenomenon that one wouldn't see even in 10,000 tribulations. They were either envious, reverent, admiring, or completely stunned. Like the waves of a surging flood, the stunning sensation blasted at everyone's hearts again and again. This huge group of immortals and gods were at least as large as the combined army of the innumerable immortal sea, God's palace, and ninefold darkness. At this moment, this group didn't show the slightest disadvantage while battling with the 3 realms. In the vast sky, the immortals, gods, and demons didn't even know where these gods came from but were truly stunned by the sight. The people on the ground looked up at the sky and burst into waves of exclamations as they watched these gods fight against the combined force of the 3 realms. They are gods from Huaxia. Divided by the Gold Bridge, 2 wars began on 2 battlegrounds at the same time, with one in the sky and the other on the ground. Chapter 940 No regrets over entering Huaxia in this life, wish to be born in Zonghua in the next lifetime. In the west, figures dressed in pure white mages' robes flew into the sky one by one, showering light everywhere. They were the godly judgment army led by the god of radiant light judgment. In the northeast, immortal music sounded as tens of thousands of immortals poured down from the sky while standing on the surging yellow clouds. In the southeast, demons and ghosts howled in the black clouds. Battle? No, everyone was engaged in an extremely fierce life and death killing tribulation. Battles were everywhere on the vast land, including Liu Yundaist Palace, the Elf Forest, and the Orc Kingdom. In the Elf Royal Palace, the ragged cloak on the thin figure looked even more shabby as swords and magic spells struck it. In Liu Yundaist Palace, all the disciples and elders panted heavily, and almost the whole palace had been turned into ruins as if an extremely fierce battle had just happened. In the frontal battleground covered in blood that formed rivers, people like Nalan Hungwu and Saint Wilson suddenly stopped their attacks and turned to look ahead. Figures walked out from the mist either with swords or whisks. Through the mist, only silhouettes could be seen. One of them carried a huge dragon-shaped sword that was wrapped in thick and heavy chains. "That's," Ancestral Master Dugu said in a deep voice, "the patriarch of our clan. And, the ancestors and senior generations of our families and factions that have declined long ago," he continued. Another two figures appeared from the mist. One held a decayed staff in its withered right hand, but the precious red stone on the top of the staff was impeccable. The other held a huge two-handed sword that as tall as one man, and the light emitting from the blade chilled people's bones. "First magic saint. Also, the first sword saint," Saint Wilson said in a grave voice. They were the ferocious godly army. The withered figures walking out from the mist seemed to be weeping about their failure before their deaths. However, their unimaginable great power seemed to be telling their descendants the long-lost but glorious legends in the past. Their empty eye sockets showed no emotions, and they butchered everything around them like puppets. Their chilly murderous spirits swept forward like mists driven by gusts. If they still had their spiritual awareness, perhaps they would want to kill themselves with the swords of their descendants. When the mortal's eyes met these empty eye sockets, a strange emotion seemed to be conveyed. "Are you ready to shoulder the future?" At this moment, Nalan Hungwu and the others seemed to hear voices from the primeval time and looked even more solemn. "If you're ready, cut off my head and advance forward." In the coarse and wicked roars, countless horrifying attacks exploded from all directions. Herr. At this moment, the players showed confidence, calmness, and great power on their faces, and they also demonstrated meticulous skills and souls that stood tall in the heaven and earth. "As you wish." With a smile, Nalan Hungwu shook off the blood, flesh, and dust on the blade of his long sword. Betting with the knight's honor. The paladins raised their huge swords and released rainbow-like holy light. "It's our duty to guard our nations and citizens." On the battleground, military sabers were raised. The ancestors from the distant ancient time and the ultimately talented descendants stood facing each other in solemnity on this battleground. Charge! Instantly, saber energies, sword shadows, countless horrifying magic spells, and ultimate sword spirits engulfed the entire heaven and earth. Surrounded by the great army of the three realms, the members of the alliance force from different races in the mortal world looked like radiant flowers that were blooming. Sword spirits traveled all through Nalan Hungwu's body. As their sword blades collided, his sword cut into his rival's neck with only a few millimeters of advantage and great accuracy. Then, Nalan Hungwu withdrew his sword in one smooth move. Remembering the countless battles in the past, both virtual battles and battles in the real world, he thought that he might have truly reached the realm of entering micro if this realm really existed. Tink! With a blunt metal colliding noise, Saint Lydon used parry to deflect his rival's huge sword and then almost at the same time. Omni slash! Behind him, a figure flew up. Sword Saint Wilson raised his sword and started a symphony of destruction. Build the golden light array. In the sky above Liu Yundaist Palace, heavenly light shook as thunders resonated between the heaven and earth. Blade of the Exile. In the elf forest, extremely horrifying green energy poured out with a roar like a tsunami on this doomsday. At this moment, everyone on the battleground felt a bone-deep chill. This was the furious roar of will coming from the creatures living in the mortal world. In the short dozens or hundreds of years, they had reached a realm that their patriarchs couldn't have imagined. Some of them had even stepped into the realm of immortals and gods. With their battle skills and mindset reaching the pinnacle stage, the unyielding mortals in this world had the right to be proud. Stop them! Stop them! The roars of the god of radiant light judgment and other gods and immortals resonated between the heaven and earth. Kill! At this order, many demons rose in all directions. A huge shadow engulfed the sky, and it was the Shadow Legion. All the people from the West continent were startled as they felt this presence. World Mage Hematon said with a grim expression, "It's the evil god that they worship." However, they were no longer as weak as they had been. They had slaughtered all the gods in God of War, listened to the lecture of Dao given by a sage in Journey to the West, and watched all kinds of Dao spells in investiture of the gods. Regardless of which continent they were in now, they could look back on the hard battles in the past with confidence and arrogance. "How can you block me?" They had reached the same immortal realm, and their swords weren't inferior compared to their enemies, but their battle hunger was even fiercer. "Was it you who sent the sects under you to destroy the factions on our continent thousands of years ago? After almost cutting off all the faction lines, you are coming again thousands of years later and bringing catastrophe to us again." Flying up on his sword, Nalan Hungwu studied the god of radiant light judgment before him. Beside him, Zhongwu, Gu Tingyun, and other cultivators and warriors all stared at this figure with cold eyes. "It was you who sent the Legion to disturb our mortal world for the last thousands of years, leaving corpses all over the land and nations ruined." On the other side, the knights and mages had fury in their eyes as they studied the evil demons before them. "Holy light! Do you see that enemy?" Led by Commander Elvin, the paladins rode on their griffins and shot into the enemy's hearts like sharp arrows. "Who the heck are you?" In the sky above the golden rainbow bridge, the king of gods who was wearing a godly crown and ruled the god's palace asked solemnly. Spiritual light dispersed from Fang Qi palm. At this moment, he felt that no matter where he was, this was the most solid rock he could lean on and obtain strength from. All the thoughts in his mind turned into one sentence: no regrets over entering Huaxia in this life, wish to be born in Zonghua in the next lifetime. An arrow tore open the void. Shot from the powerful sun-shooting bow, the godly arrow turned into a light beam and flew out. The headless battle god roared. In the next moment, the immortals, gods, and demons crashed into each other on the top of the sky. It looked as magnificent as the merge of rivers of stars. "That's all you can do? Kill!" Xianzhong Saint Master, who was in a purple robe, roared. In the next moment, 4 immortal swords shot up into the sky, turning the heaven and earth into. In the distant 4 directions, ancient swords suppressed the universe as the extremely weathered ancient worlds revealed in the red lights. They were the following: immortal slaying, immortal trapping, immortal butchering, immortal exterminating. 3 treasure jade rui, Tai Chi scroll, and all kinds of connate spiritual treasures crashed down from the array. Ah! A scream rose, and it was followed by the second and the third scream. Then, screams rose all over the mountains and fields. As the sword energies flashed inside the array, corpses littered everywhere, and blood turned into rivers. The immortal treasures that the enemies were proud of and their unrivaled cultivation strength seemed to be useless at this moment. Immortal slaying sword is sharp, immortal butchering sword is deadly, and red lights rose when immortal trapping sword is launched. With miraculous variations, immortal exterminating sword makes Deluo golden immortals soak in blood. This seemed to be the true catastrophe. These lofty existences could bring a catastrophe with a thought. They had never imagined that one day, they would become the targets of such a horrifying catastrophe. At this moment, they seemed to be facing their own doomsday. Chapter 941: The Incarnation of the Great Dao. The purple-robed Saint Master, who was the leader of the 8 major immortal families, the king of gods who ruled all gods, the king of evil gods from the 9-fold darkness who wore the bone crown and emitted horrifying and ominous presence, had expressions that they never showed before. At this moment, they all turned ashen-faced. After living for countless years, they rarely had emotional fluctuations. But at this moment, an emotion named fear rose in their hearts. What should we do now? Only a few Saint Masters were left among the 8 major immortal families. Although they had extremely high strength and had fought in the array for a while, if the situation continued, even their pre-heaven physiques and the power of the Saint Masters couldn't save them. The purple-robed Xianzhong Saint Master, the leader of the 8 Saint Masters, said with a grim expression, "Now, we only have one option, asking Master for help." Before these pre-heaven saints and primeval gods were born, there had existed ultimate existences who even these Saint Masters and ancient gods must look up to. These existences were probably even more ancient than this world. One of the ultimate existences had inspired the 8 immortal families and the gods from the God's Palace. According to the legends, this existence came from the chaos beyond heaven and had the most ancient power that could lord over everything. He was the lord of the godly court. The other such existence was the lord of demon gods in the plane of ninefold darkness. He was also the source of horror for all the immortals and gods. With a strange sound, all the laws of nature and the most original forces in this world were activated. As heaven and earth merged, the pure and the turbid essences were being created. In the space that was suppressed by the 4 swords that made up the immortal slaying sword array, the sword energies suddenly slowed down. The time and space inside the immortal slaying sword array seemed to be under layers of great pressures, and its movements turned slow and difficult. An ethereal light which looked as vague as the meteors in the depths of the universe transformed into a huge hand that seemed to be condensed from stars in the universe, and it entered the array. The hand was so huge that it almost blocked the entire sky in the immortal slaying sword array. Its master. The purple-robed Xianzhong Saint Master immediately dropped to his knees and yelled, "Master is making a move." The King of Gods from God's Palace looked disheveled while he fought in the array. He suddenly looked up and stopped what he had been doing at this sight. All the immortals and gods in the array stopped fighting and looked at the scene in a daze. Ever since they had consciousness, they had never seen the Lord of the godly court who ruled the heavens and earth making a move in person. How stunning it was! How unimaginable it was! His first move was attacking this horrifying major array. At this moment, an extremely grand voice that sounded like the chiming at the beginning of the world came from beyond the heavens. Like a giant bell, the voice resonated through all ages. No one could imagine what horrifying existences could reveal such ultimate power with a few words. Everyone looked up and saw a spiritual figure standing in the universe with its head touching the stars. As if it stood outside of time and space, it looked down on this world coldly. It forced its way through the immortal slaying sword array and reached for Fang Qi in the array. "We came at the creation of the heaven of earth just for the heart of this world and the seed of heaven and earth's fortune. This item has combined all the best resources in the heaven and earth and condensed all the essence from everything in the world. After brewing for a long time, it has come to maturity today. We have waded through thousands of tribulations, and it is all worth it. Do you think I'd allow you to ruin our plan?" But in the next moment, the huge hand suddenly paused and then shattered into pieces. "Who is it?" A furious voice came from beyond the heaven. Standing beyond the starry sky, a figure turned from vague to solid until he completely materialized. They faced each other from distance. Immortal music floated over from beyond the heaven, sleeping in the high 9th layer of clouds. "I understood true Dao on a futon. Across the heaven and earth, I'm the Almighty Master. Pan Gu created Tai Chi which gave birth to Yin and Yang and then 4 directions. I passed Dao to 3 disciples, and 2 of them created the Chan sect and Ji sect. They are leaders of Dao sects, all coming from Hung Jun. Who is it?" Seeing this scene, all the sages of the immortal families, pre-heaven gods and demon gods from the plane of ninefold darkness's minds turned blank as if their heads would explode in the next moment. How could such a figure exist in this heaven and earth? What should we do now? Xianzhong Saint Master and the other Saint Masters felt chills running down their bodies. "Hurry! Help me take the ultimate holy power of fortune." Xianzhong Saint Master rolled his eyes and said, "Then, with the force of the entire heaven and earth, we can melt and destroy anyone." "But," Xianhuang Saint Master beside him said with worry, "where the heck is this ultimate holy item of fortune?" Xianzhong Saint Master seemed to be recalling some past events. After we were born, this world has evolved continuously. In the core of this world and the depths of the land, the essence of everything in this world and the best resources gathered and nurtured a spirit after a long time. We subdued it with our master and found that it contained endless great Dao, which means it's our destiny to take charge of the great Dao and control the heaven and earth. Unfortunately, the godly item had a spirit. Its spirit escaped, so we chased it and shattered it. While we fought over it with the demon gods from the plane of ninefold darkness, it disappeared into the mortal world. The shattered soul pieces scattered in the world and spread some of the presence of fortune to the mortals, which makes it extremely hard to detect its whereabouts. Only after we truly refine it can we truly control this world, Xianzhong said grimly. According to our calculations, this item should have revealed its true form to the world by now. But why? He stared at Fang Qi without blinking. Why doesn't this person show any sign of it? If it reincarnated and was born in the mortal world with a human form, Xianhuang Saint Master stared at Fang Qi in the array and said, regardless of how well he hides it, he should have revealed some signs of it by now. Xianhuang Saint Master asked, if it took the human form, how can we recognize it? It's hard to recognize, but due to its special physique, most of the energy it took in will automatically heal its damaged soul, which means that, regardless of how high its cultivation strength is, it will always feel hungry and need food, Xianzhong Saint Master said, but this brat has fought so long without wanting to eat. On the battleground in the mortal world, Zhang Xiaoyu sat on the ground while panting. Then, she rubbed her tummy and looked frustrated. How come I feel especially hungry today? She took out a bottle of iced red tea bigger than her small head in a hurry and gulped it down heartily. Gulp! Gulp! The two Saint Masters exchanged a look, and their faces had never looked so astonished before. Perhaps, we were chasing after the wrong person. Behind them, the last few immortal masters heard their words and looked at the young man before them. We tried to smash his shop countless times, and you are now telling us that we got the wrong person? Chapter 942 The War Ends, Gods and Demons Fall. It's been so many years, all our efforts and careful planning are for this moment, but at this moment, the gold bridge separated the heaven and earth into two worlds. Besides, they were now in the immortal slaying array, and it took all their great power to temporarily block the array. Going down to the battleground in the lower region was impossible. They looked down at the battleground where the mortals were fighting the demon gods of the plane of ninefold darkness and saw rows of knights forming an array of shields, taking the front line. As warriors charged and priests sprayed holy light, the huge army advanced step by step with great steadiness. Priests! Follow and heal them. Paladins! Push forward! Hoarse yells resonated all over the battlefield. On the other side, people like Nalan Hongyu, Gu Tingyun, and Zhongwu forced the god of radiant light judgment to defend frantically. Sword shadows moved like lightning bolts. With his extremely powerful sword techniques, Nalan Hongyu fought the god of radiant light judgment head-on. Countless wondrous sword techniques shot across the sky like galloping heavenly horses, but they also oozed an extraordinary steadiness. Murderous spirits dimmed the sky as Zhongwu led others to hold back the judgment army from one side. Under their attacks, even the powerful god of radiant light judgment was out of breath as he scrambled to block his enemies. These mortals seemed to have drained all their strength. They moved as if they had rehearsed the tactics and calculated the steps countless times. Their battle methods were unthinkably experienced and vicious. The troops from God's Place, Ninefold Darkness, and the 8 major immortal families were astonished to find that they were at a complete disadvantage. This was the mortal joint army that they saw. This was the first time that they were stunned by a group of enemies, a group of ants. These mortals were indeed inferior to them in strength, but they had suppressed the joint army of immortals, gods, and demons step by step with almost zero casualties and mistakes. Everyone looked grim. So, that's it. Give it to them. They had never imagined that the war in the mortal world would come to this degree, but now these immortals, gods, and demons seemed to have made a decision and yelled as one, after experiencing countless tribulations ever since the primeval time, we can only win and can't lose this war. Kill them all. Chills ran down their bodies. These existences made this decision not only because of greediness. The more important reason was that they couldn't allow such enemies to live any longer. As tribulations took place, the fortune of the world showed. These beings had taken a share of the laws of nature in Dao-splitting palace. Now, they were the heavenly Dao. At least, these mortals were not their match in strength. They believed that as long as they achieved what they had planned in the past tens of thousands of years, no existences, regardless of how powerful they were, could block them. At least in this world that belonged to them, they would be absolutely unrivaled. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyu was taking a break on the edge of the battleground. Then, she thought that slacking on the side wasn't good, so she stood up and dusted off her skirt. However, she was still feeling hungry, so she took out a bag of potato chips and began fighting and eating at the same time. Hey! Why are they all staring at me? She shivered and felt chills running down her spine. The battle that the mortals were engaged in wasn't less difficult than the battle above the Gold Bridge. They were only mortals who had just made breakthroughs. They fought with great efforts step by step to make the scale of victory tip toward them. When they were on the brink of success and almost defeated these gods and demons with mortal strength, this sudden change almost turned all their efforts to waste. Like a tight string that was holding the world together, everything would instantly collapse if the string broke. On the battleground in the southeast, the demons from Ninefold Darkness looked as if they had gone berserk collectively and crashed onto the shield formations regardless of their lives. They charged repeatedly like black surging torrents until a fissure appeared. Like a big dam that was broken, the shield array cracked open, and demons poured in toward one direction. On the battleground in the west, a surge of stunning godly energy shot up and shielded the god of radiant light judgment and the soldiers around him. Then, hundreds of elite godly judgment soldiers shot up light pillars into the sky as if the will of the whole world came into their bodies, and the laws of nature protected their souls. Doomsday Judgment! With a furious yell, destructive light pillars rose between the heaven and earth and almost turned the mortal world into a horrifying hell. Where are the tanks? Shield wall! Shield wall, push! Push! Sword Saint Wilson let out a hoarse roar and charged into the black currents by himself. Zhang Xiaoyu's mind was now blank. Together with people like Li Lanruo, Mu Qing, and Yu Bai from Heavenly Academy, she was surrounded by the crazy godly judgment soldiers who swarmed up like waves of a tsunami. Kill! Yu Bai slashed her sword without stopping. Kill! Mu Qing's eyes were red with murderous spirit. Zhang Xiaoyu's small face looked pale. However, this small team of academy disciples still couldn't see the end of their enemies even when their swords broke, and their energies were exhausted. Priests, heal! Heal! Mages, control them! Hold on! Hold on, hold on a bit more! Commander Elvin suddenly looked back and saw his teammates fall one by one, his heart bled for them. At this moment, an extremely horrifying roar came as the strength of the huge evil god in the center of the battleground rose again. A surge of extremely evil energy turned into a black tsunami and spread out in all directions. The broken shield array at the front line was instantly knocked down and devoured. Then, the energy continued to spread to the back line. At this moment, even the ultimately powerful masters such as Sword Saint Wilson, World Mage Hematon, and Swine felt cold inside. Will be wiped out. In the previous battles, they didn't end with death. But this time, perhaps they would truly meet their end. They looked up at the golden light above their heads. Even if the battle in the sky ended with a victory for mortals, it was meaningless since the mortal would soon be wiped out by the remaining forces of the joint army of the three realms. Facing such horrifying power, no one could save themselves. At least the mortals couldn't. Xianzhong Saint Master and the King of God's Palace, Bright Light Godly King, heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at Fang Qi in the array, they chuckled and said, "Finally, we'll triumph. You trap us in the array so we can't do huge damage to the mortal world with a wave of our hands, but it also makes it impossible for you to help them." Fang Qi looked down and shook his head. "Do you believe me if I say that they no longer need anyone's help? Every one of them is a challenger player. Before them was the devastated battleground and the destructive energy that devoured everything like a tsunami. Human strength was so tiny. Of the entire Golden Griffin Knight Legion, only Commander Elvin remained standing on the battleground. No one knew what he would face, but he knew that he must do something. For the people who they guarded and the world that they loved. There were kind and peace-loving elves, fierce and strong orcs, and even the mysterious friends from the ancient East. He still remembered their boat trip on Red Leaf Lake, their raids in World of Warcraft, and their sufferings in Dark Soul. He was thankful that the world gave birth to so many lovable beings. Perhaps the heavenly Dao would change, but the land that they lived on was still their home with countless people and memories that they couldn't forget. "Paladin, do you dare to sacrifice yourself?" The ancient words for paladins resonated in his mind. Of course. He turned the blade of his huge sword and pierced his own chest. Blessing of sacrifice. When everyone fell, blessing of sacrifice helped one person stand on the battleground. She waved her staff lightly, and her body turned vague and merged with holy light. Then, the pure holy light spread out like angels' wings. Figures got up from the ground one after another. At this moment, they themselves were miracles. Heya! With power that she didn't know she possessed, Zhang Xiaoyu dispelled all the demons with one sword slash. The horrifying power cut all enemies into half, including all the soldiers of the joint army of gods and demons that surrounded them and the people of the East Continent and the West Continent. Head-nailing 7-arrow book. With his long white hair messily fluttering in the wind, Gu Tingyun emitted intense murderous spirit. At this moment, they had discarded any considerations of life and death. They had no time for it. With the 7-star bright lamp at his feet, he shot out 2 arrows. Pu! The god of radiant light judgment spewed out a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, the huge body of the shadow evil god was engulfed by death presence. The second arrow. Gu Tingyun's ancient face almost withered instantly. Holy shield. On the other side, holy light lit up like rekindled flames. At this moment, the gods and demons all over the sky felt a bone-deep chill. With their actions, the mortals seemed to be telling these ultimate existences that they would rather die than be defeated. At this moment, they were horrified to see that a flash of sword light swept toward them. Blood dyed the entire immortal slaying sword array red. At this moment, the remaining people of the joint army of the 3 realms felt cold inside. With shock, horror, and fear on their faces, they finally realized that they were finished. Where are my potato chips? The end 1/2, Demon Master. Demon Master has also been suppressed. Run! Quickly run! Not only the few remaining immortal masters but the saint masters such as Xianzhong Saint Master were scared witless. Then, the loftiest godly court beyond the endless void and above the gods collapsed. The tens of thousands of immortals built a major array that stunned all ages. Like a millstone of heaven and earth, the array destroyed these figures that had survived countless tribulations. At this moment, they were facing the most horrifying killing tribulation that they had ever seen. Boom! 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 Countless gods and demons exploded into pieces and were devoured by the red light in the array. Then, they turned silent. The gold bridge spanning the heaven and earth suddenly turned into a shower of gold dust while a golden flood swept across the entire sky. The remaining spiritual energy of those once lofty existences turned into golden spiritual rain and fell on the land. Winds brought the spiritual shower across the whole world. The deserted sea realm that had scarce spiritual essence gradually turned lively again, and the storms in the huge and desolate sea area around Half City gradually calmed down. Heavenly Abyss Sea was outside the most desolate deserted sea realm in the continent of Immortal Relic, and it was the only way leading to the spiritual state where Yuanyang City was located. Golden spiritual rain fell in heavenly abyss sea, and the strange natural phenomenon caused by the endless ancient space fissure was gradually replaced by tremendous vigor of life. It was summer. In the remote wilderness of the ultimate West Realm, the 10,000-year-old snow on the mountains melted, and new plants began to sprout at a visible speed. This place wasn't located in the polar region but seemed to have been abandoned by the sun. At this moment, vivid life returned to this area. In the elf forest, the shocking land crack began to slowly close as abundant golden spiritual essence entered the ground, which was in desperate need of spiritual essence. Like a wondrous medicine, the spiritual essence healed the countless wounds that this world had been afflicted with ever since the ancient times. Concealed in the small worlds which seemed to float around the continents, including spatial fragments, ancient deserts, and withered forests, countless creatures which had been on the verge of extinction walked out and entered the world. Dead wood began to sprout, and deserts began to show refreshing greenery. This fragile world seemed to gradually get stronger. Countless fragment-like small worlds began to gather in the center. One day, they might return to their original form. From now on, the previous rulers disappeared. The three realms outside the mortal world would only regain order after a long time of chaos. From now on, there were only the heavenly clan living in the sky and the darkness clan living in the plane of ninefold darkness, which was connected with the depths of the ocean. Meanwhile, humans had never given up on their explorations of the outside world. They explored the sky beyond the sky that had been told in many legends and seemed to gradually obtain some progress. Perhaps, there was a vaster starry sky beyond this heaven and earth. A brand new era had come. At this moment in the godly court, a milky white light sphere slowly rose like a newborn sun. The laws of nature that had been split up and taken by gods now came from different directions and gathered in these ruins in the void. A small noise sounded. After countless years, a new spirit seemed to have been born. 1 year later the shop held another worldwide esports competition. Xiao Yulv and Mu Donglei sat on the caster stand. Below them were the audience stands that were filled with countless people. Today's competition had ended, and the casters and commenters began to chat with each other. Mu Donglei said, "I guess everyone has heard that we'll announce a bunch of great news after today's competition. The good news is that Gongzi Xiao Yulv, our longtime cloud player, will be removed from the blacklist after today's competition." Ha 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 ha, he he he. Sitting next to him, Xiao Yulv laughed hysterically. Instantly, bullet comments flooded the screen. "Congratulations to the longtime cloud player for being allowed to play games in the shop. Awesome! Are you going to live stream now?" Obviously, Mu Donglei saw this message. "In fact, I wanted to ask Gongzi Xiao about the first game that he'd like to play after being removed from the blacklist." "Of course, I'll play Resident Evil, Diablo 2, The Legend of Sword and Fairy 1. Xiao Yulv said while moving his hands. "The shop has many games. Why did you choose these 3 old games?" Mu Donglei asked, "Can you tell us why? Did you choose them for the sentimental reason?" "With all kinds of new games popping up, many new players might not understand my choices," Xiao Yulv explained to Mu Donglei and the audience. "At that time, entertainment for us was going to the gambling house or listening to songs or stories. High-end entertainment was just hunting demon beasts. When the games such as The Legend of Sword and Fairy and Diablo came out, my goodness! At that time, who would have expected that a monster would drop so many items after being killed? Some of which were even ultimate items. At that time, who would know that they could fly by riding on swords? I had goosebumps all over my body by just watching them play the games," Xiao Yulv said. "Now, the games are each better than the last, but it seems like we can't find the feelings that we once had. At that time, we would chat about items, attributes and properties and skill combinations in Diablo 2 for one night in excitement. We would forget to eat meals when we were in the middle of a warm discussion with friends about the plot of The Legend of Sword and Fairy 1. I was so eager to play when I watched them from behind," Xiao Yulv said, but I just couldn't. So, you will play these games to fulfill your old dreams? Mu Donglei asked. You can say that. Then, let's hope our Gongzi Xiao gets to play the games as soon as possible. Mu Donglei said, this is the end of today's live stream. Thank you for watching. I'll go and play games now. Xiao Yulv waved at the camera. See you all in my live stream room. The moment that he came to the entrance of the shop, Osh! A loli landed from the sky. Dressed in a beautiful snow-white silk royal dress and with a Pikachu school bag on her back, she stomped her boots and said curiously, how come the shop owner made the ground outside the shop so soft? Did he do it to celebrate the beginning of my summer break? Yay! Forget it. I must enter the shop now, or that strange big light sphere will catch up with me. She ran into the shop. Who the heck did that? Xiao Yulv was about to get up from the ground. Osh! He screamed as a milky white light sphere as tall as one man landed from the sky and flew into the shop. Pu! He has broken ribs, hurry! Carry him to the royal medical house and give him the best medical care. He's not allowed to leave for 1 month. Faint voices came from outside the shop. Ah! Let me in. I can still play. Meanwhile, inside the Zhuhua City shop, Zhang Xiaoyu put down her school bag cheerfully. Boss! Get me one computer. Xiaoyu! What did you bring here? Nonplussed, Mr. Fang stuck out his head from the back of his seat, wondering how come a big light sphere was in the shop. Does this thing come here to play online? How do I know? Zhang Xiaoyu pouted and said in a huff, this big light sphere has followed me since this morning. I don't know where it came from, but it claims to be my little sister. How come my royal father didn't tell me that I have another little sister? It must be an impostor. With a proud expression on her face as if she was saying that she wasn't so gullible, Zhang Xiaoyu took out a big bag of potato chips from her little bag, which turned out to be a spatial storage bag. She tore the bag open. Oh! Oh! This seaweed flavor is so good! Xiaoyu! Mr. Fang took the bag of potato chips from her and said patiently, I told you that it's a high-calorie food. Look at you! You've gained weight and have a round face. I'll keep this bag of potato chips for you. Besides, it's not right that your academy gives you so many breaks. Mr. Fang took out a big pile of papers from his storage artifact. They were test preparation materials and worksheets for university entrance exams. You need extra classes this summer break. After all, a childhood without the experience of doing extra classes isn't a perfect childhood. Hey! After Mr. Fang put them on her desk, Zhang Xiaoyu looked at the pile of papers that towered over her and froze. At this moment, Mr. Fang also looked puzzled. It seems like that the Lord of Godly Court came from beyond the heaven, and it wasn't wool of this world. Then, where's the wool of this world? How come I've never felt it? As Mr. Fang was engrossed in this thought, a pure white little hand reached out from the light sphere and grabbed a handful of potato chips stealthily. This is indeed puzzling, Mr. Fang gazed at the ceiling and continued to think. The hand took another handful of potato chips. Forget it. I'll give up thinking about it since I can't figure it out. The hand took another handful of potato chips. Mr. Fang snapped back to reality. Seaweed-flavored potato chips are my favorite. I'll eat some. He reached his hand into the bag and froze. Hey! Where are my potato chips? Lifting the empty bag, he looked around with widened eyes and blinked. Of course, there were beneficiaries. Even though the realms other than the mortal world received lower benefits, the Valkyrie who was lying in the pool found that her fingertips shook a little. I can move. Sure enough, her arms could move now. Her breath turned shallow as she murmured, after I recover, I'll wait. It's 8 p.m. now. I'll see what TV series the shop has tonight. At this thought, she immediately cast a spell to show the big screen at the lounge area in the shop. Immediately, she heard the song, "I still can't part with you, let us stay together in the mortal world and live a dashing life." On the big screen were two big words, "My fair princess." TL note, My Fair Princess, also known as Return of the Pearl Princess or Princess Returning Pearl, is a 1998-1999 television costume drama. It had been rebroadcasted every summer for more than 10 years, and everyone in China knows about it. What TV series is this? Immediately, she began watching it, engrossed as she lay in the pool. As for the previous gods who had entered the gods' investiture list, they were now busy working day and night in the most dangerous fissures in the world. Full of void tribulation thunderbolts, these places couldn't be reached by the golden spiritual rain, and they worked tirelessly to heal these fissures and contribute to the recovery of the world. Many years later, when they finally purged their sins, they could finally return to the gods' investiture platform and shoulder the responsibility of protecting this world. By now, Mr. Fang's internet cafe and its games and movies had spread all over the world. Its arcade games and mobile games were popular even in other realms. Time passed. Some of the old players worked in the shops. For example, Shen Qingqing became the head of the internet cafe's culture and promotion department. Su Zixin established an association to study gunfighting techniques and was responsible for part of the security work outside the shop. Dong Qingli, the owner of Wind and Moon Pavilion, had made her business into a chain of stores and offered delicacies in every corner of the world under Mr. Fang's recommendations. Some had grown out of their youthful confusion, realized their dreams, and built their careers. Take Song Qingfeng and his two good friends Lin Xiao and Su Luo as examples. Song Qingfeng had joined the expedition into the ruins beyond the sky and explored the secrets of the whole world. Lin Xiao had returned to Lingyun Academy, and this former disciple became an instructor. Su Luo was engaged in the study of the ancient ruins on the continent and had built his own archaeology team to research and uncover the long-forgotten ancient history of this continent. Some people such as Nalan Hongguo had put down the heavy burdens and began to truly enjoy the remaining years of their lives. Some had become entertainment or technical streamers and brought excellent game guides and happiness to people all over the world. Even the independent warriors such as Liang Shi and Fatty Wangtai had their own properties, established families, and lived busy lives. Of course, Nalan Mingxiu must be mentioned. She was now controlling one of the biggest industries in the world, the mobile games industry. It had become more and more difficult and almost impossible for them to gather together and do overnight raids or discuss game guides for a whole day as in the old days. Another year-end drew near. Mr. Fang sat on a couch next to the window and lit a cigarette. The customers thronged in the shop as usual. "Have you tried the new game, Chicken Dinner?" A few young people who were about 13 years walked into the shop. They wore the clothes of the nearby big families with badges of Lingyun Academy pinned on their chests. TL note, it is the nickname for PUBG in China. League of Legends released limited edition skins. It's said one of them is Dragon Fist Lee Sin. In the shop, a young man who was about 16 years said, "I'm going to buy Jade Dragon Wukong," another young man said. "I heard that instructor Wu of Shengjing Academy is going to take people to the Luke raid in Dungeon Fighter Online for free today." A few figures walked in. "Hurry up! There'll be no spots for us if we're late." At this moment, light snow fell from the sky. Mr. Fang looked up. The smirk face emoji in the shop would still come out draped in a quilt, but the active players in the shop were no longer the same ones. They were in their youth, and somehow, Mr. Fang saw his younger self in them. After finishing one cigarette, Mr. Fang gazed at the bustling crowd in the shop, feeling a bit lonesome. Suddenly, it struck him that he had come to this world for more than 10 years. Looking at the young people coming and going, he sometimes missed his youthful self who used to play in the internet cafe. At this moment, Su Tianji got off her live stream. Then, she put down the virtual reality headset, bought 2 mugs of cappuccino, and walked over from the counter. Dressed in warrior's clothes, Lin Xiao walked in with ice and snow all over his head. While brushing off snow from his clothes, he chuckled and said, "A student sneaked out to hunt demon beasts and got in danger. It took me some time to find him." He looked around. "I hope I'm not late." "No, you're not," Mr. Fang said with a smile, "you're the second." "Hee hee. You guys are early." And Huey opened the door and looked toward the lounge area. Then, he glanced around and froze before saying, "Brother Liang, how have you been?" Liang Shi also walked into the shop. "Well, I'm quite busy since the year-end is here. People like Nalan Hung Guyu, Royal Princess Jiyu, Su Zixin, Shen Qingqing, and half-cities Mo Tianxing and Ningbai arrived one by one. They filed in, putting away their umbrellas and bamboo cloaks. Then, they bought a cup of their favorite beverage and sat on the couches in the lounge area, just like they had done in the old days. Now, you are all busy." With a smile, Mr. Fang extinguished the cigarette butt and said, "I booked a private compartment in the Wind and Moon Pavilion. It's a rare occasion for you to return here, and tomorrow is New Year's Eve, so let's have a New Year's Eve dinner tonight in advance." "Ha ha ha. Okay. The shop is as busy as usual, it's busier." "Sir, where's Xiaoyu?" Su Tianji asked. "I sent her to Wind and Moon Pavilion to order the dishes." "Hey? Is everyone here? It seems like we are missing a few." And Huey looked around. "Where's that kid Song Ching Feng? It's said that he set off yesterday and should be here today." When they pushed open the door and looked out of the shop, they saw a young man who was close to 30 years old coming over from the end of the street. Dressed in a military uniform, his previous handsome face had some signs of weather and age with a scar beside one of his eyes. With an experienced and decisive presence, he greeted them with a military salute. "Young master." "Song. Ha 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 ha. Dude. I almost can't recognize you. Let's go. We brothers have to have a few cups together. No going back unless we all get drunk." Mr. Fang laughed, "Today, we'll all get drunk." "Oh. Ha 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 ha." They disappeared at the end of the street. When spring came, Mr. Fang entrusted the management of the Internet Club to the staff and walked to the distance with a simple bag on his shoulders. Perhaps he would tour this beautiful world as he had promised himself. Perhaps he wanted to find a way to return to his home world, who knows? A figure caught up with him. In the dusk, breezes brushed her calm face and fluttered her pure white dress hem. With snowflakes falling on her shoulders, she felt the lightness of setting down a heavy burden. The mild and elegant voice said, "I plan to tour around the world as well. Can I join you?" "Okay. Okay."